So hey, it's Romania Black. I'm not going to lie to you all. You all are watching this the week after volume 41. It's been 2 weeks since I filmed. There were reasons for that. One was because I had originally recorded ahead, and so I was doing really good. I was pacing myself, getting ahead of myself. And after volume 41, girl needed a break. Girl needed a big old break. And so that's exactly what I did. I was also polling Patreon to figure out, what do I do next? Do I go straight into volume 42? Do I go into the guidebook, which is the rest of the deluxe volume 14? Which do I do first? So I had a poll on Patreon. It tied. It tied. It was a split vote, 50-50. So then if you are a patron on my Patreon, then you know that anytime we have a tie vote, the philanthropy tier, those members get to break ties. So we did a vote on there. Of the members of the philanthropy tier, only 9 people voted. So the council of 9, the 9 ring wraiths came in and they decided, and 56% of the philanthropy tier wanted me to do this first, which honestly, I'm kind of in hindsight glad, because I think I needed 2 reasons. One, I need a little bit more cleansing after that last volume. I want to get a couple more comments in from other volumes. But also, the completionist in me really wanted to finish volume 14 and everything tied with Miura before we move on to Mori's part, which will be volume 42, which will be next week. And then I'll be caught up until we get to volume 43, which will be whenever that happens. So probably not anytime soon, but so that's basically it. But yeah, I want to go over the guidebook. I know a lot of people were like, I don't know if you should read the guidebook, but I kind of want to see what's all in here. I anticipate there's going to be possibly information that we didn't know before, that I missed, maybe, perhaps, or that I couldn't read in the comments because they were spoilery. There might be interviews with Miura, which would be super exciting. Usually in guidebooks or fan books, there are an interview with the creator, and I've only got to read a few of the interviews with Miura, so this would definitely be great. And also it will help give me overall context moving into volume 42 before we talk about that. And I brought out Whiteboard Coon to see if I wanted to talk at the end of this volume. It'll depend on how long that takes and what that looks like. But in any case, I've got a lot of comments, though, based on volumes 36, 37, and 38 that I want to get to with you all, and volume 39. Like I said, I haven't recorded for 2 weeks, so I updated my comment section today. And I want to go through these with you all because there are some really long comments. There are, at this point in the story, a lot of conflicting views over certain interpretations of what's going on, which is exciting. It's neat to get conflicting views, because then it's like, if you're a content creator, you're like, well, what do you think about that? Which side do you agree with? Do you agree with either side? And so I definitely am excited by that. I feel like what Miura has created is very divisive. It's very controversial. It is not something you can easily digest, and it is eternally frustrating. So anyway, so let's dive into that, shall we? We're gonna basically back up and talk about these comments before we dive into the guidebook. And I have a lot of them, so I do apologize for them taking so long. And a lot of these comments are mushed together from the last several weeks. So they're comments from the same commenter that I've kind of put together, and I've tried to categorize them thematically. That's how many comments there are. But we'll start with Shining T1G3R. Says, I'm not sure if it's been brought up yet, but during the making and publishing of volumes 33 and 34, Miura was upset many fans of Berserk by writing a short manga called Gigantomachia. This is what caused much of the hiatus between chapters and volumes, and Miura never explained why he did it. At the same time, Miura took on an apprentice to learn from him and share some of his workload because his health had begun to fail. Now, when this commenter first commented for one of the volumes, I was immediately like, okay, can we cite sources? Because there have been a lot of people, YouTube is an open platform. There are lots of people that comment he said, she said sort of things, like, well, I heard that Miura had Parkinson's and did this. And you're like, well, where's your proof of that? And then people are like, I don't know, I saw it on Reddit. And you're like, well, I need proof. So as an English teacher, I'm like, cite your sources. And so I'm like, where is this coming from? So a lot of times when I hear people say like certain factoids about Miura or production issues, I'm like, okay, well, where did you find that out at? Was it just somebody's blog on Tumblr, or did they have actual like cited, credited sources, right, from the official source? Like a tweet can be a source. You can cite a tweet, but it has to be from an official source. So they responded back saying, I should clarify my previous comment. This was 10 years ago, when chapter 377 had just been released in Japan through volume 38. And I was catching up on Berserk chapters I had missed at the start of the Millennium Falcon via translation sites. Yeah, 10 years ago, I've been reading manga online since early 2000 and can attest that we've come a long way with fan translation sites and the accessibility of manga. Like now you have like simultaneous translations, simuldub casting, like so much now that's just instantly available or the next day. We were in the dark stone ages, and I can't imagine in the 90s people scouring the internet trying to find fan translations. So that makes sense. But they said the only reason I brought this up was because there was a lot of coverage on Gigantomachia in Young Animal, which is the magazine that produces Berserk, with translators explaining that Miura had taken on an assistant, but only to help with his new manga. Many fans of Berserk were upset because the hiatuses were getting longer, but the chapters were getting shorter compared to when he first started writing. All of this information came from fan translations explaining Miura's notes, and he wrote either in the chapters or at the end. The issue with his health, specifically at the time, was that he was very stressed and not sleeping well because of his workload. See, that's the thing, like when people say his health had begun to fail, like this was back 10 years before his death. So I do know that there was somebody that had posted in a comment that Mori had specifically said in tweets that Miura's death was not, something that came chronically because of the creation of his manga. Obviously, most manga writers and most mangaka are stressed, don't sleep well, and have not the best health. If you have read Shonen Jump for more than 2 months, you probably will get lots of comments from mangaka being like, I'm sick, gotta take the week off, and things like that happen. I honestly accredit a lot of rights that mangaka have. I'll say it. I credit Oda, who created One Piece, to what I've seen a big trend in noticing with it, because I feel like Oda, when One Piece became very popular, was like, hey, Shonen Jump, I'm making you lots of money. I'm going to take a week off and you're going to be okay with it. And they were like, sure. And so now I feel like Oda, in a lot of senses, kind of started that revolution, and current mangaka like Horikoshi, like Fujimoto, other mangaka, Akutami with Jujutsu Kaisen, I feel like they've been able to take weeks off and prioritize their health because you had someone that was really successful like Oda kind of set the bar. And I feel like seeing things that have happened like to Miura has also shown creators that, like, yeah, you got to fight for your right to party and express your concern over self-care, because you're the one making this industry money and they'll pay attention to you for that. So I think that's interesting. I will agree with the fans that the pacing of Berserk and the fact that Miura takes so much time and effort in his chapters, if I had been a fan around that time, I probably would have questioned and been like, what are you doing? Because Miura, is releasing chapters sporadically at that point. And for him to suddenly say, yeah, by the way, I'm also going to take on this side project. And I've been like, but wait, you're not releasing chapters efficiently with the manga you're currently creating. But to play devil's advocate for Miura, there's another part of me that I like to think up stories for multiple things at multiple times. And I would get frustrated if I was working on this one story, but I had this other idea sitting in the wings, and I'm like, oh, I really just want to get it out there. So I think it's fine he had his assistant trained to kind of work through it with him, but I can also see the fans being frustrated, being like, we've been reading this manga for 20 years. What you doing? So that's interesting. I'm glad that you clarified Shining, because I had been curious what all that meant. So thank you very much. Now let's talk about Aison real quick, because I guess I have been so frustrated with Aison's character throughout this latter portion of the manga. Amir Almond, Judah Frazier, Rancid Randy, all of them pointed out that Aison during the Conviction arc was depicted as a noble and chivalrous knight, to the point of becoming comedic and satirical. In his reintroduction, I think it's just supposed to be comedic. That is how they've always interpreted it. He's just a goofy, chivalrous noble knight who lost his old authority and status and now has bumbled his way into the main plot of this dark fantasy. And then Damage3245 in the Discord was talking about how one panel, they did show one panel in the Discord where Aison does say he was dismissed from the Holy See, and that's why he keeps his helmet on. And Damage3245 also said that Miura may have liked Aison and wanted him with the crew for added comedy relief. Look, that's all well and good. It's just kind of weird to me that Aison keeps the helmet on when all the people he's traveling with know who he is and they've all been like, dude, it's fine. So it's just such a bizarre choice. And for Miura to just explain the reason for this character's existence in one sentence on one panel, I'm like, you spent how many panels of Griffith on a horseback doing nothing, but yet this important plot relevant thing you just spent one sentence on? Pacing Miura. So I am glad that you all spoke up and talked about that. I was just like, what? So then BBT Raziel, who is also a patron, they had multiple comments, so I'm going to kind of like smush all of theirs together. The first part is about Yzma. I don't think she's half Marrow. Since all Marrows seem to be women, I think that all of them have human dads. Maybe they can only have daughters. Or maybe if a boy is born, then it's a regular human. That's a really good point. I hadn't considered it. I had not considered that. You're probably right. It makes me think of armadillos. Armadillos, fun fact, I thought this was the coolest thing as a kid. Armadillos, they have litters of babies and they're all the same gender. There's never a mixed gender litter of armadillos. It's just something in their DNA. So maybe the Marrows are like that and they can only have like they get with guys and they either have a human man or a Marrow daughter. Who knows? But anyway, I thought that was interesting, so thank you for pointing that out. And then they also commented saying, even though Casca is currently afraid of Guts, which is around volume 48, I love how in her deep subconscious level, Guts is helping her. Guts the dog is fighting to protect the casket from the demons and doing what he can to collect the fragments. Beside the fact that the chibi Casca is afraid of dog Guts, the bigger picture of the whole setting is what really matters. And I'm glad you said that, BBT, because that was one of my big struggles with last volume, was I was like, are you telling me that after all this time, after 20 years of waiting in real life in the manga, and after weeks and weeks of me reading, that we are back to square one with how they are communicating? And I liked BBT's comment because it's basically saying like, yeah, it wasn't going to be perfect when she came back, but we know subconsciously she does know that she views Guts as a protector and she views Guts as someone caring for her. She may not be able to rationalize the trauma yet that she's been experiencing, but she is able to know deep down that Guts is not responsible for it, but she has to process everything else around it. So that perspective did help a lot, BBT. Don't think that it didn't. So I'm glad that you said that. And then we finally get to the slap page. My soul was cleansed. Mine too. This is one of my all-time favorite moments in Berserk. Mine too. Not only because it feels good to see, but also because of all the symbolism of a small human slapping a god. If it can bleed, we can kill it. And this was the first time the Ascended Griffith took a hit. Well, we could kill it, except the baby's attached, so I don't know how straightforward that will be, but at the time you wrote this comment, we didn't know that yet, so. And then Lollylol535 said Rickert is the true god hand. I support this. Sitchy45 said Rickert officially has done more damage to Femto than Guts. Yep. Sure has. I don't know what that says about the series, but you are not wrong. So there we go. And then these two comments kind of went together. Emperor Gaiseric said the slap chapter created a new meme that was born in the Berserk community where Guts will need to tie Rickert to the Dragon Slayer so he can hit Griffith with it. Which is hilarious and I love. And then Chunky Monkey 69420 says Rickert doesn't hate Griffith and he doesn't have it in him. So the key to beating Griffith must be love, LOL. Guts is just going to have to slash at him while screaming he loves him. And we're going to talk about that here in a hot second. So we're going to talk about that Don't you worry. And then Shining came back again. Shining T1G3R said, at this point in Berserk, many people look to calling Guts Team Dad, exactly like Team Mom, because his new group is more like a family than anything. This is also the point where Guts was not seeing, where the Guts we're seeing is not the Guts that we loved from the Black Swordsman. And we're worried if Miura lost his touch to make Berserk more family friendly. I'm assuming they're translating from a different language because of the grammar, but I simultaneously don't know how I feel about all of that. It is the most messed up thing because on the one hand, I kind of see where the audience is coming from if they believe that, because if you signed up for gritty, dark, hyper, gory fantasy and then you had Team Dad and all this develop, it kind of feels like it's a different story than what you signed up for. So I understand that, but I'm also like, this is kind of what it should have been to start with. So it makes me a little pissed off at Miura because I'm like, oh, you mean we could have had this from the start and not this nonsense over here that's dumb? Oh, okay. Well, why did we wait to get here? It just kind of feels like Miura's like, I've tortured you and now here's your reward. But it's not really a reward when you're like, oh, you mean we could have had this from the start? Okay. So I understand the frustration, but I view the frustration on a different level. I don't think it's a bad thing that Berserk is more family friendly. And I don't think it's family friendly. I'd code that as being like, oh, you mean there's no sexual assault? Oh, well now. Because that's literally the main difference. By family friendly, you mean, oh, people aren't getting assaulted? That's really the only difference. I'm curious to know where you think the other differences are, because there's basically no rape. That's the difference. There's still nudity. There's still gore. There are still eyeballs popping out. There haven't been on Elfhelm because it's Elfhelm, and it's literally the sanctuary. It'd be like if eyes popped out at Erica's house with Godot. That's not going to happen because it's the whole point of the location. But basically the only difference between the latter volumes and the ones that are dark and gritty is that there's no rape. And so if you assume that a story has more quality because it's grittier in that sense, then I have a problem with it. And I'm like, I'm going to have to strongly disagree with you and your terms of family friendly, because I think you're trying to code it and use a fallacy to cover yourself for like other reasons, but whatever. Anyway, I would respectfully disagree with that. I don't mind Team Dad if all it means is there's less assault. So if you disagree with that, comment down below. But we'll go back to the whole loving thing that Chunky Monkey brings up. Because then Brandon Evans had this theory, and again, we talk about people that are disagreeing about interpretations, and this one made me like rack my brain because they're not wrong, but I'm just like, anyway, I'll read it to you first. My theory about the slap is that Griffith saw it coming. He knew it was going to happen because he knows everything, supposedly. The question is why he allowed it to happen and why he rejected or not reacted to the way that he did. What I'm thinking is that Griffith wants to make himself appear as though he's still somewhat human to his human followers so they don't feel so distant from him. By making himself appear vulnerable, as if he could be caught off guard like that, even when Skull Knight couldn't catch him off guard by appearing out of the Netherrealm. We'll talk about that in a second. I'm thinking he showed fake weakness intentionally by allowing Rickert to slap him. He wanted to make himself more relatable to Sonya and his other human followers so they trust him more and feel more at home with him. Or that's my theory anyway. And then they talked about how Aison was hiding from the Holy See and all of this stuff here. So they kind of like went on tangent like with the others about Aison. But here's my issue with that is that I don't think Brandon's wrong necessarily, because it does make a lot of sense where, the Skull Knight who cut through inner dimensions with a Behelit-made sword couldn't strike a blow on Femto, but Rickert gets to slap him across the face. And it's kind of like, yeah, by the logic of the story, that does make sense. And I think the reason I wholeheartedly reject that theory is because by accepting that theory, it's suggesting oh, well, Griffith's still OP, so I guess nothing can stop him. It takes like the one moment we had of someone making Griffith bear responsibility and own up to something. That theory that Brandon posits completely negates all of that and just brings it back down into despair. And I'm like, and if that's the case, then it's like you get nothing. You get nothing good out of this. And so the sad part is, based on what we've read so far, Griffith's not affected by Rickert slapping him. Griffith isn't affected by any of that. He's just going to carry on business as usual and not give a shit. So it's kind of like, so I don't think Brandon's wrong, but I want to believe that he's wrong so that I can feel there's some semblance of hope in this story and not just utter despair and torture porn. So that's where I'm at. Like it's logical, but it's like, you don't want to believe that like all the comments about Rickert being amazing and being the one to stop Griffith with that slap. If you go by Brandon's theory, then it's all negated and it's just completely moot. But that ties back to the idea of love is the idea. And I've said this in prior discussions that I want Guts to just abandon the concept of revenge and just say, screw that. I'm going to go off with Casca. We're going to do our own thing. You have your utopia, Griffith. If that's what you want, you have it. But with these last set of chapters, it's like that whole concept is impossible, which has been why it's been so frustrating. And I'm like, Miura. So I thought those theories were really interesting. So Shanked, I told you this was a long intro. Shankdom said, okay, let's talk about big boy Rick, the slap, how composed and calmed his mind was. What I'm saying is his slap lacked malicious intent. It was just a simple slap. It lacked the lust, violence, and anger that Guts has. The only time Guts has ever beat Griffith is when he was in a calm state, when he left originally back during Golden Age. Just like Rickert, my theory is Guts might need to compose himself and let go of his anger and not forgive Griffith, but let go of the anger, and maybe he can finally kill him by letting go of the past, learning, growing to be a better man, a better person, and moving on with his life, this time protecting what he has now, his future with Casca and the people he cares about. Yeah, I agree with that. I would love that. I would love Guts to just forget him and move on. The thing that I want as a reader is I want Griffith to bear responsibility for what he's done, and I want things to collapse on top of him and for him to have to answer to the deaths of Judo, to the deaths of Pippin, to the rape of Casca. I want him to answer for his crimes, because in a story, your villain needs to answer for their crimes. Whether that means, if he has a redemption arc or rehabilitation, the message of that as a victim of assault makes me clench my fists a little bit, because I'm like, you got to handle that pretty delicately. I don't know if Miura is capable of handling that delicately. He's not handled this whole topic very delicately in the past, so it worries me. But if that's the case, then you better do there better be some hard core responsibility bear by him. And that's just not happened yet. So I'm all for Guts going off and being like, screw you, peace out, I'm going to go live my life. But Griffith still needs to own up to what he's done. Whether it's at the hand of Guts or not, we're kind of like left to find out what that is. But I don't agree with you, Shankdom. I would like that for him too. Synthetic Vocalist says this also feeds into the fact that Guts is a flying or leaping fish. Without Guts, it's theorized that this movement here, with Rickert the slap, Griffith was supposed to get everything. Rickert foolishly would slot in line with everyone else, and that would validate everything Griffith had done up until this point. But Guts and Casca survived. Not only that, Rickert saw the complete despair it caused two people he cared for and respected deeply, and who cared deeply for each other. And Griffith had the effing gall to show his face at the memorial site, disrespect the graves that he was responsible for, i.e. allowing Zod to defile one of the tombstones that Rickert had specially made and mourned for one of the Hawk members, and to try and kill Guts. And literally said he felt nothing. Oh yeah, like that's all fresh in my mind. I'm right there. And Rickert doesn't hate Griffith, but he was truly disgusted with the former leader's actions on the Hill of Swords. That's why Guts is a leaping fish, and Rickert did everything right. Yeah, I'm in agreement with all of that. I think that that's all very true. Moomin Comet says, one other thing. Most of the residents of Falconia do know that the monsters are here. They accept the fee for living in this place. It could blow up in their faces. To live in this world, Griffith has forced them to make a deal with the devil, literally. I do agree that they know that the apostles are there and the demons are there. I don't think they know about pandemonium. I think Locus has kept that a secret, and they don't know exactly that it's a fighting pit and that all the stuff's going down there, because otherwise they'd be inviting people in to like pay money at the door and go watch a WWE wrestling match. So I do think that the people in Falconia know the apostles are obviously demons. They literally watched that battle against Ganishka happen, but I don't think they know about pandemonium. If so, we need Miura to clarify that, or Mori in this case, by having there be a panel explaining that. I think a lot of people, something about the fandom I've noticed is a lot of people kind of have conjecture in their own interpretations. They're like, well, this is what it means. And I'm like, where are you getting that from? Well, that's just an interpretation. I'm like, I'm like, no, I want concrete evidence. If you can show me panels, if you can show me evidence, yes. But if you just tell me that's what you think, because you've been reading it for 20 years, that's not getting in the mind of Mori and Miura. That ain't gonna cut it. So I am curious about that. As far as Nina is concerned, I think she's dead. And I was like, oh no. Moomin says she had a disease that was consuming her. It could have been syphilis. It could have been tuberculosis. Either one is terminal at this time in history. Okay, well, one thing too, and I don't mean to respectfully disagree with you, Moomin, this is not a historical fiction. This is a fantasy story. So the saying that, well, in history, tuberculosis killed you in 6 years, this is a made-up fantasy about elves and demons. So the timeline of disease control, I think, does not matter or mean anything at this point. But they do say, I do hope that Yohim is okay, though. I think Nina's alive. I'd like to think she's alive, because otherwise I think we'd see Yohim by this point in Falconia being like, oh, she died of her sickness. I think we would have seen him already. So I'm holding out hope she's alive and questioning that. Right. But anytime somebody is like in a fictional story, especially fantasy, they're like, well, according to history, I'm like, that means nothing in this. Even if you base your inspiration from it, you don't have to play by those rules if you're an author, nor should you. Like, where's the creativity in that? So, and then the slap. We've been waiting since the anime that depicted the cliffhanger episode that made you think he died. I know! I'm so excited by the fact that Rickert not only has lived, I thought in the 97 anime he was gonna die by the end of episode 25. So glad he lived, but then he got to become this big character and key moment this late in the story. He's another Guts type along with Psylocke. Rickert, of course, is Rickert, but the story does mirror Guts' own in a way, and so does Psylocke's. With all these people, Guts has influenced or taught them something that contributed to their survival in the world. A contrast or comparison to Griffith. Yes, Guts and Rickert and Psylocke are so much fun. I love them as characters. Okay, last comment, promise. I know I'm taking 30 minutes on this. G-Wolf says, I find it so painfully interesting and funny in hindsight how Guts & Co. boarded the Seahorse on Chapter 278, which was released December 5th, 2007. They landed on Elfhelm in Chapter 342, released June 24th, 2016. So, the audience that had already followed the series before 2007, the whole trip took 8 years, 6 months, and 18 days. Also, a lot of chapters, nearly, what is that, 60 chapters? That's a lot. Funny you mentioned the artwork starting to feel more digital. It's because it is. And several people have commented about this, but Wolf did first. Miura doesn't mention it himself, but I do recall someone from his team saying that he transitioned fully to digital around the release of the chapters compiled in Volume 38. So from now on, all is digital. Prepare to see an absurd amount of detailed art. On that point, my favorite anecdote, and I'm paraphrasing, is that when Miura was introduced to digital artwork for efficiency's sake, he was so excited about being able to zoom in so far to add much more detail that the man was nearly shading pixel by pixel. So the efficiency aspect of it became a double-sided weapon. Probably one of the many reasons why the hiatuses became longer in the latter years. So when you think the digital art is going to make things simpler, Miura's like, oh, you mean I can now become a perfectionist even more? And so it's like you created your own monster, right? Insane in the membrane, let me tell you. So yeah, those were the comments, and I'm excited to go through this guidebook and talk about it with you all, but it's just wild. It's wild that we're here. Anyway, so we need to dive in and talk about this. So let's start that here in 3, 2, 1. I like Betchy. I like Puck sitting there on top of Betchy. I'm assuming this is the cover of the guidebook with all of them there, which is great. I didn't realize that Puck was blue and Ivalera was pink until now, so that's cute to see the little pink and blue comparisons there. Aison made the cover. He's back there in the back. I'm like, what the heck? But yeah, everybody there. I'm still always amazed that Yzma has blue hair. I thought it would be red, but we've got enough blondes and strawberry blondes there, so fun time. But yeah, that's a really good cover. I like that. I like that quite a bit. So let's get in this. Oh, wow. Oh, wait, about skipped a page. Oh, nice. I like the picture of Guts there with the Dragon Slayer. Love it. Love the red in the background. Looking crazed. And I like Puck there. It's weird to see, like, Puck is like a Ken doll. It's weird to see nude bodies that are androgynous, where it's just like there's nothing there. It's like looking at a Ken doll. I like that image of Casca with the tomato. It looks like blood, it's a very sexual pose for Casca, honestly, which at this point, are we surprised? Casca gets, going back through the manga, that video I'm doing is probably not going to come out anytime before 2025. I'm sure I'll probably need time to process between now and then. But if any character is sexualized in this manga, it is Casca, for better or worse. And there's nothing wrong with this image. If you know, you know. It is what it is. I do like that one of Isidro, though. Someone, Damage, shared on the Discord an image of Isidro grown up and had the little bandana. I thought it was really cute. Oh, I really like the alternative. You have Farnese with the warm colors, and you have Serpico with like the wind and the cool colors. That's really cool. Like fire and ice is what it looks like. That's really neat. I like that. It's really cool. Oh, look at Shirk. Look at her with her little glasses. They look like they were Flora's glasses. That's freaking cute. I love that, actually. That's freaking adorable. What a sweetheart. Love it. Okay, so the official guidebook. There's a lot. There is a lot to go through in this guidebook, but I'm not going to read everything word for word, but we're going to just talk through it. And if there's any interviews, we've got a character guide, we've got a world view. We're going through a lot of the characters here. And then we have interviews. Yay, rah. That's exciting. All right. So, oh man, the fact that the phrase with Guts is, "I'll never lose her again." Guts. Okay. I'm assuming that none of this is going to be getting into things that happened in volume 42. I'm assuming that. I'm going to be careful about what I read. But so volume 8, I want to stand beside him by attaining something of my own. When he was with the Band of the Hawk, Guts heard Griffith's speech about how a friend is an equal and decided to leave the band in pursuit of Griffith's friendship. I love that. I love the idea. One of the things I loved about the Golden Age was Guts coming to the conclusion that he wanted to improve himself to be someone that was strong and leaderly and to the equal of Griffith. Like that ambition, but it was so pure, right? It wasn't selfish. It was, he wanted to get better to have a friend. And I was like, and then, meanwhile, Griffith's like, I want to get better so I can rule the world. And Guts is like, I just want to be your bro. So it's like, it's crazy. He's like, I've had my fill of miracles. Even if you force back what was lost, it won't be the way that it was. Someone in the comments, I look at the way Guts has evolved in his design. Look at the way he's matured and evolved. Isn't that crazy? One thing that somebody was commenting on that I kind of disagreed with was that they were like, I don't know why Guts can't be as badass as he was in the Black Swordsman arc. Now he's accepting help from people. And I was like, do you know what growth is? I was like, what? I was like, so Guts shouldn't accept help from people or care about himself and his well-being? Okay, alpha male. I was like, what? That part, I've seen some comments like that and I was like, I don't know if you all understood what Miura was trying to tell you with the story. I mean, I can't speak on Miura's behalf, but the theme seemed pretty obvious. So, Okay, so we have, I love when they do these parameters of strength. Obviously, physical strength, stamina, and legarity. Interesting. They're all pretty high. Intelligence, average. I like emotional strength is like really high for him. Which I guess if you suffered through all of this, your emotional strength would have to be hard. I guess so. But sociability, the worst of all of them. Interesting. So he's estimated to be 24. Okay. Is how Miura describes him. A lone wolf, stubborn. Seems about right. Okay. And then we get like his personality and ideology. Violent emotion concealed behind reticence. Ooh, I like the way that that's described. He usually distances himself from others, saying and doing things in somewhat a nihilistic and level-headed fashion, but inside he harbors violent, combative emotions. He'll face even powerful enemies head-on. A lot of this, I feel, has been updated as we've gone. And then his closely connected characters, Griffith, Casca, and the Skeleton Knight, of course. So yeah, we get his history and everything, turning points. Obviously, we've gone through this. We're not going to recap those. His skills, the equipment that he carries, all the armor. We've gone through that. Puck! Oh my god! So, the innocent elf companion. His age is unknown. He is male, though. Sky blue eyes and hair. And then... basically a ditz, irresponsible, thinks work is for losers. Nice. Somebody was commenting about like Puck being comedic relief, and I was fine with that in this because Puck's an elf. I think that if any character is going to get a pass, it's going to be Puck and Ivalera because that's literally part of their species characteristics. But sociability and legarity are like his main things. Everything else, nope. So the forever happy-go-lucky ditz. Love it. Okay. Oh, and then Casca. Oh my god, Miura. Did he make her catchphrase growl? Miura, what the fuck? I guess this isn't Miura that put together. It's the studio. I'm like, she had all of these quotes from the Golden Age and you chose to just have her rambling incoherently as your quote for her character? What is this shade? What is this? Oh, I had a headache before I started this. It's coming back. Anyone. The one Guts protects, whose mind ended up regressing due to the eclipse. She's the woman Guts loves. The reason he's going to Elf Island is to protect her and restore her mind. In the Band of the Hawk, she was a veteran warrior who led a unit of 1,000 strong, but the eclipse damaged her mind, leaving her in a childlike state. Okay. So she's 24 too. Miura describes her as collapse of self and childlike regression. I don't like how her parameters are so much, like, weaker there. Like, she was pretty up there with Guts back during the Golden Age arc. Like, really? Pure and childlike innocence herself. Rescued by Griffith, whom she worshipped. Fierce opposition to Guts. And the way that he drew her back in those... interesting. Back at in the Golden Age arc is so much different than now. I wish the guidebook would have talked about her before I know for the majority of the story, she's been this blank slate and been this cause of trouble, as the guidebook says about her. I feel like this guidebook is doing Casca dirty. Like, why can't we talk about, the, 9 volumes where she was badass? We can't talk about any of that? Really? So facing death together, Guts and Casca accept one another. Her attitudes towards Gus soften. The nightmare she had at the end of Griffith's rescue. And her saying, I want to be his sword. I want a wound that I can say that you gave me. Everyone's weak, so they rely on dreams and other people. And I wanted someone to be near me. Yeah, I mean, Casca was always so interesting to me because she was someone that's like, I want to be reliable and I want to be, but I want to be relied upon, but I also want to be connected to people. So it says under skills, currently a weakling, protected by guts, Farnese, etc. But it seems that the skills she ingrained into her body over many years as a warrior peek through now and then. I'm like, I wish those would come back. I would love for that to come back. She was actually decent, you know. Okay, yeah, even Farnese's emotional strength and intelligence there. She like does not get a lot of strength in there. So she's 19. Miura describes her self-sacrificing, accepting of her own weakness, obediently studying magic, aware that protecting Casca is making her stronger. He writes a whole essay about her. Doesn't write shit about Casca. Uh-huh. Okay, there's all this with Farnese. I really do. I have loved the Here's the thing. I have loved the route and the story that has followed Farnese. My issue is I wish that could have been for Casca. I feel like you have Farnese and Guts. They're not connected romantically. So it's almost like so many, especially shonen, especially male shonen writers, and I know Berserk is a seinen, but from the shonen I have read and from male authors, they are so remiss to write a couple growing and developing simultaneously. It almost never happens. It's always a female and male character who are not going to get together, who are allowed to grow simultaneously. But they're not going to get together at the end. Oh, no, we can't have that. But we're going to let them each grow, because you have Farnese, who has Serpico and Roderick over here in the wings, growing at about the same rate. And then you have Casca over here in the same boat. But Guts and Farnese are allowed to grow and have lots of character development, but they're not going to get together. So don't you worry about that. I think of Bleach. I'm just going to say, spoilers for Bleach until I wave my hand again. You have Rukia and Ichigo. They get to grow a lot during the series. Do they get together at the end? Nope. So, end of Bleach spoilers. But usually, like with main characters and casts, the female and male characters that are allowed to have character development and grow, rarely, not always, but rarely do they end up together. And I don't understand as a writer why that is. I guess because they want the drama, or they want the protagonist to have someone to protect and to care for, and they need that damsel in distress archetype, but it drives me crazy. I'm like, why can't they be a couple that grow together? They're going to face drama at some point anyway, but why can't they be equals? It just, into my soapbox. Into my soapbox. So we get a whole section on Farnese, which she has had a huge set of growth and development. I like where Farnese has ended up. Again, I like her as a mage. I definitely think she needs to be in the story. She's not one of those characters that I think could have not existed in the story. She needed to be there as a character. I just wish Casca could have had as much development as she did over the course of it, but what can we do? There is Serpico. Serpico, look at his strengths there. Ridiculous. What? Look at that. That's insane. So Miura says Farnese's brother from another mother. He's a brother from another mother. He has special feelings for her and a strong sense of attachment. Yeah, special feelings. Okay, Jaime Lannister, we got that. Although, I love how Serpico is drawn. He looks so great. And he's honestly been consistent. Like, from the beginning, his look has not changed. He has, again, speaking of Bleach, he has a Gin Ichimaru vibe to him. But I like Serpico a lot. Anyway, so then we have his whole relationship with Farnese and all of that kind of detailed out through here. His hood and all of that. I'm honestly hoping we get something on the Apostles. Anything at this point. Or the God Hand. Anything would be welcome. That'd be great. If you could give us anything, that'd be awesome. Look at how has Isidro got more emotional strength? I know they're doing Casca currently, but like Casca, as far as this story has gone, Casca's come back from from the dream realm. So Isidro has a more emotional strength. Does Isidro have more intelligence than Casca? Yes, he does. More emotional strength. He doesn't have as much physical strength or stamina as Casca. Okay. But he has more sociability than her. I'm like, what the? This has to be like before she came back. It has to be. Still. Grumble, 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 grumble. But anyway, Miura says he's bright-eyed and bushy-tailed bad boy, wants to fight his way to the top using his sword. And he's 14. Okay. There we go. Old Isidro. We get a whole bunch on him, and he's connected to Shirk. Why is he not connected to Yzma? I feel like maybe it's just the shipper in me that wants to ship him and Yzma. I thought they had a lot of chemistry back in said arc, but I guess maybe not. Shirk, my sweet. So she's 13. 13. Kentaro Miura says, a very good girl, intellectual and more observant of what's around her than her companions are. A chairwoman disposition. She owns 50% of this company, basically. Damn, yeah, her intelligence and emotional strength are maxed. For sure. Everything else is like, we don't need it. All right. And I like that why does she put closely connected to Sonya? Put guts in there, if anything. Oh, nice. We get her skills, her magic, all that good stuff. All right. Flora makes her appearance here. Awesome. Nice. And then Ivalera. Ivalera's stats are almost similar to Casca's. Oh, Miura says, like a middle-aged woman from Osaka. She adores Shirk. I'm guessing maybe she's like a stereotype of woman from Osaka. To me, that kind of reminds me of like from Jersey Shore. Like, like a stereotype from that culture. Interesting. Aison's on here. Aison. What? Aison's more stacked than half these characters. Okay, I want to read actually on Aison. So he's 46. Miura says, amusing chivalry guy, despite fooling nobody. He thinks of himself as being the mysterious mustache knight. I guess that makes sense that he keeps that helmet on to seem like he's, solving problems. But I'm like, really? I do want to read a little bit about him. The former vice commander of the Holy Iron Chain Knights, now a masked stowaway. He was relieved of his post when the band was wiped out, and after wandering for a while, he joined Guts' party. He calls himself the Black Mustached Knight. He has a strong knightly disposition, aiding the weak and daunting the strong. Okay. I guess that's it. I just really thought there would be more with this character. And I even told Damage, I was like, because they were like, you really were suspicious of him. And I was like, well, I've seen so many other authors, kind of introduce that character and then have it, become something. And I thought that maybe Griffith would use him to track him, but who needs to track when you can become a baby each month that instantly connects back to Guts and Casca? What? I wonder if we're going to get anything on the Moon Boy in this one. Damn, Roderick is stacked too. All these people. Okay, 27. All right. A rich gentleman of the sea courting Farnese. A resolute dandy. Oh my God. I thought that said resolute daddy for a second. I was like, please, Captain. Oh. I hate that his catchphrase is, it looks bad when a princess protects a knight. I'm like, get in the 21st century, dude. I feel like it should be perfectly appropriate for a princess to protect a knight. Like, you're in a big hunking piece of armor. Let's go. And then Magnifico, who's 28. Farnese's big brother, Manihiko. Funny. All right. So what else we got? Oh, there's Yzma. Damn. Girl has lots of sociability. She's kind of just in the middle there. So she's 15. So she's a bit older. Simple girl. Good-natured and very upfront. Okay. Pretty straightforward. See, a tomboy who yearns for the outside world. I really ship her and Isidro. I think that Shirk might be a little bit out of Isidro's league. Just a wee bit. I think Yzma... her and Isidro give off Will and Elizabeth Swann vibes. Will Turner, Elizabeth Swann vibes. Okay, so we have Midland walking through there. talking about the religion, the kingdom's beginnings. Oh yeah, Gaiseric, the demon king and king of the galloping death, who just happens to have a skull on him just like the Skull Knight. Okay, it says that 1/3 of the continent's population lost their lives to war. The imperial capital sunk into the ground via the natural disaster and still sleeps within Windham Castle. The folklore, oh yeah, going back to the Skull King. The fairy tale goes, God couldn't condone the Skull King's deeds, living in utmost extravagance, so he sent 5 angels and erased the city in a span of a night. How this relates to the actual founding of the kingdom is unknown. Yeah, so we found out the last few volumes that there's some truth to that, but it's not all, it's not the angels that we thought there were. Okay. I do think it is real quick to point out that about 1,000 years ago, the continent saw many city-states, races, and tribes engaged in constant warfare. Supreme King Gaiseric subjected the constantly warring countries and established a great empire that stretches all the way across the continent. Eventually, the empire fell, and the Midland royal family was born, and the only kings descended from the emperor. So, yeah, it basically, Griffith is trying to do 2.0 version of that, and Gaiseric's like, that's a bad idea, but okay. All right, and so then we have all of the incidents that have happened. The capitals, Land of Conviction, Kushan Empire, all of this. It's crazy to go back through all of these. Oh, Chestnut Puck's big list of techniques. The feel-good elf everybody loves. Everything about Puck condensed for you to see. Are these all his forms? Oh my god. Oh, one's called Devil Man. Oh, that's what it is. Oh my god. Wow. The master with whom the force is. Delusionmon. Oh, that's from that series. Wow. So here's all the references and where they're from. That's actually... Oh, Vaudevillain. Yes. That's actually hilarious. And Gravedigger. Wow. That's actually super cute. I'm glad they compiled all of those together. That's so funny. Puck, honestly, has been needed in this story so much. Wow, there's even more. Okay, yep. The whaling ship, the clown, the king, the navy. The navy one is maybe my favorite because he has earmuff. Like he has little earplugs in during that whole thing with the sirens. That was actually really hilarious. Okay. The Reborn Band of the Hawk. Are we going to get anything on these? I like how they put all of the Band of the Hawk in like one big panel. Griffith gets his own panel, bitch. Don't be thinking you're going to steal his sunshine. Why? Why? The parameters on... I'm going to look at the comparison of the parameters on Guts versus Griffith. Can we just check that real quick? Wow. Okay, so to be fair... Oh my god. I don't know if I can make it this to where it's side by side. Look, there's like... Griffith's taking up the whole thing. It's mainly sociability. Sociability and like physical strength. Guts has more physical strength and stamina than Griffith. But Griffith beats him in intelligence and sociability and legarity. So yeah, Griffith is the more all-rounder, but Guts is technically physically maybe stronger according to these highly subjective statistics. Uh-huh. Yeah. I'm going to get my own kingdom. I'll not betray my dream, but you're the one who made me forget my dream. Sure, bro. Yep. Okay, so what does Miura say? The Hawk of Light, still flying up into the heights. It's unclear how much he has in the way of human feelings. Well, probably not much, considering that he's been reborn as Femto. I love his horse makes such debuts. Look, he has charisma, uniqueness, nerve, and talent. Oh, yeah, the crest. Yep, the Reborn Band of the Hawk. It's even showier than before. Wow, Rickert's face when he shows him that crest, like, look at you, you big freaking sellout, is what that gives, right? The vibes. Oh, Zod! Zod is just all strength and stamina. No sociability whatsoever. Oh my god. Wow. Age unknown. Did it say an age for Griffith? Did it give him an age? 24. We'll go with that. He's a combat fanatic and a seeker. Is he playing Quidditch? Oh, wow. Yep. So the longtime enemy of Guts and the Skull Knight. I still ship them somewhat. It was a side hustle. Okay. Living for 300 years for battle. There's Sonya. Just emotional strength. Not much else. I'm glad that Shirk has better stats than her. So she's 15. Spacey Witch is all Miura describes her as. A spacey witch. That's actually hilarious. I'm kind of all about that. That Miura's like, she's cray cray. She's a stage 5 clinger. A rural girl treated like an infant. Terrible. That's such a good description of her. Wow. Yep. Yeah, that, you idiots. The thought transference. That's probably going to be the thumbnail of my video essay. It's going to be that panel when I get to it. But yeah. So, okay, good. Locus. God, his stats are stacked. Why? Why? Oh my God. Age unknown. A superior soldier, knight loyal to Griffith, advisory position within the Reborn Band of the Hawk. So do we get anything on him? One of the high-ranking members, originally known as a Moonlight Knight, right? He became even more formidable after transitioning and reincarnating as an apostle. But we don't get much of his backstory. It says, a hero so legendary, it was said every knight's child had heard bedtime stories about his exploits. It seems while earning his many achievements in warfare and duels, he spent all his time on peregrination rather than serving one master. And Locus worships Griffith, and in his eyes, Rickert is the one who committed the outrageous act of refusing Griffith's invitation and slapping him. It's interesting that he didn't like... My thing is, he's really devoted to Griffith, but didn't have that devotion seemingly to anyone else before. So I always wanted to know, like, why? What made him worship Griffith, other than the fact that Griffith's really strong and has great hair? What was it? But we don't really get to know much about him. Then there's Irvine. God, their stats are ridiculous. The hunter who loved the forest. Yeah, the sniper. A professional who prefers quiet and hides kindness inside. He dislikes a boisterous atmosphere and often operates alone. He doesn't say much, but has a strong sense of responsibility. He cares about his companions and is considerate and warm towards Sonya. So did he just become... I guess this is my sense too, because he did like rescue her during that one chapter. But I wanted to know, like, to become an apostle, you have to sacrifice people, meaning that you're a murderer, essentially. So why did he murder someone to become an apostle? What made him get to that point? Why did he choose that? Miura, if he's a kind soul, why did he sell his soul to the devil? You need to answer these questions, but you're not. So it's like, damn it, no. Of course we're not going to answer that. Oh God, Grunbeld's stats are almost as high as Zod's, but different. He has more sociability than Lagarity. A military man, a mighty hero, giant, and a giant red dragon. So it says he's esteems the pride of a warrior over anyone else. The warrior managed to protect a small country from a large one for a decade, using only his personal force of soldiers. Afterwards, he became an apostle and hastened to join the Band of the Hawk. Again, other than them being power hungry, it's like, why did you make these decisions? Oh, and then Roxas. Yeah, oh my God, the smart one. Exile of the Bakaraka assassin clan, a homicidal maniac. His stuff makes sense. Of all of the new Band of the Hawk, Raxus makes the most sense, because just saying homicidal maniac, exile from Bakaraka, we can put 2 and 2 together to know how we got here. The personality trait explains everything. The idea of noble being a personality trait is too vague for me. I'm like, I need to know, like, a little bit more. But I get that Raxus, why he would join the Band of the Hawk. All that makes sense. Like, we have enough on his backstory that we get it. Okay, then the Pontiff. Mule. Mule stats are better than Casca's. I can't believe the audacity of this guidebook. A young knight who admires Griffith, and he's Sonya's guard. He's 17. Bless his heart. Can't even vote yet. The son of a minor feudal lord. Yep. Oh, Laban and Owen! Look at them together forever, next to each other. Yep. The general since the 100-Year War who cares about the people. And then the head of Falconia's castle guard, who continues to fight alongside Laban. Uh-huh. Yes, Laban's sworn friend, strongly patriotic, and rebukes the Lord's act. Look, I know several male commenters, and I say male because they've presented as such, but a lot of them are like, when you ship, they're like, oh, you're shipping two guys. Can guys not be friends? There's been some comments about that. Look, I don't ship characters just because of their gender, first of all. And I don't ship characters just because they happen to be within the same breathing space of one another. Now, there are crack ships, and those are fun, but those are all in just joking jest. I felt like some of the comments were a little bit insecure because the commenters were like, well, there's just not enough representation of bros being bros. And I do agree with that. There should be more of that for sure. Same with female characters. Usually when they're female characters, they're not besties. They're like catty bitches at each other and fighting. And that's a stereotype all in itself. So you're preaching to the choir when you talk about friendship being represented. And I do believe there should be more like male and male friendships and broships that are represented. And not every pair of men I'm going to ship as a couple. But, you know, I don't ship Guts and Serpico, for example, because I don't ship Pippin and Judo, for example. I don't do that. Did I at one point ship Roderick and Magnifico? Yeah, but during that whole ball scene, they were giving off those vibes. Sorry, but they were. And then in the case of Owen and Laban, they give off those vibes a lot. These two are metrosexual men that are giving off the vibes that they go out for drinks together and maybe make out afterwards. And sorry about you, but that's just my view. And it's all in good fun, but some people took it really seriously in the comments. And I was like, y'all need to like touch some grass and calm down. But we have Foss and Jareth. All right. So the other monsters, we got all of them on here. The pseudo apostles. Yep. Got all them. I remember back in those days. Remember back when the Count and the woman type apostle, I liked the woman type apostle. They're like, she's the one that has boobs. Oh, wild. Get rid of him. Gross. Glad that we just got that picture and that's all we got. The Brood Apostle, Rosine. There we go. And then the Hornet, the Pseudo Apostles, the Bug types. It's crazy. Back during Rosine's arc, that was maybe one of the first few times we got the Pseudo Apostles. Interestingly enough, the Egg of the Perfect World. Yes. Wishes for something. Interesting. The Great Goat. Are you freaking kidding me? That actually has a name. They don't talk about his snake dick, but I guess we're going to leave that out. All right. And the war demons that are in the Reborn Band of the Hawk. Well, Borkoff's there, isn't he? Yeah, he was in the fighting pit. A lot of people pointed that out. Yes. The non-humans kill one another. Just absolutely insane. So then we have the monsters. We have the Incubus, the Trolls. Nope. The Kelpies. The Denizens of Qlipoth. The Sea Gods. Yeah. Someone did point out, which I thought about this too, that it is interesting to me that on Elfhelm, there is like Shirk says it in the volume. I forget if it was volume 40 or 41, about how the energy is kind of like Qlipoth, and some of the creatures, like the brownies, kind of remind me of the little spirit creatures, the denizens of Qlipoth, and there is a Kelpie there too. So there is something slightly sinister about Elfhelm. Like there is this negative energy that's been recollected. And there is kind of like a cult vibe there where like all the elves and the mages are like, everything's fine. We're maybe settled on this dark path of astral energy, but everything's fine. We've channeled it. It's great. And so there is kind of like an underlying current of eeriness there. I don't know if that's going to get played upon or not, but it is there. Like the spookiness is there. So it's not lost on me. Okay. And then the creatures that run rampant in Fantasia. There's a freaking dragon. There is a legit dragon in Fantasia. Guts has a dragon slayer. There best be some dragons getting slayed in this manga at some point. right? The Lady of the Depths, her arms laced in the purest champmite. You know, if you've watched Monty Python, the Holy Grail. All right, and the magical creatures there. Nice. You know what? The souls that wander the physical world. These are all the ones, the dead spirits that wander without passing on. Death makes them cling to life. Nope. They amplify a living person's bad emotions and attempt to take them over. Yep. Glad we addressed that. So the Zesty character collection. What is this? What is this Zesty characters? Zesty, Bumpy Helmet. Look at old Barbo flexing there. What? And Bazuso. Oh man, and Jericho too. What? The Zesty character collection. Man, I forgot about the Holy Purple Rhino Knights. That was a bitchin' design, let me tell you. Loved that. We're not going to focus on Donovan too much. No, thank you. Or the jailer of the Midland prisons. Nope. Oh man, the chicken type apostle. What? Why is everybody getting their eyes gouged out? Jonah the Seagull! But wait, there's more! Jonah the Seagull is hilarious. That's really funny. And Magnifico's strange play. Oh, those are the physical world. Yes, there we go. Rickert, look at him. Wow, look at him. 19 now. That's so wild that he's as old as Farnese. Oh my God, he's as old as Farnese. He's older than Mule. That's so wild to me that he's 19 now. He's like only 5 years younger than Guts. What? What? He's only 5 years younger than Guts. That's crazy talk. That's crazy talk. A skilled blacksmith. Good at inventing. Besides Guts and Casca, the last survivor of the former band of the Hawk. I like that Griffith's not included in that. Yeah. All right. Oh, Rickert is... I love Guts and Shirk a lot, but Rickert has been one of my favorites since the beginning. And I think other than Guts, Rickert is right up there. I like Psylocke as well, but Rickert is right up there. I just freaking love it. Judo. Look at where Judo's stats were and Pippin's stats. Judo looks so good there. He was 18. Rickert is older now than Judo was when he died. That is mind-blowing to me. Mind-blowing. And he's the same age as Pippin was. Mind-blowing. I thought Pippin was a lot older. I thought Pippin was in his 20s. Judo, handy in various ways and especially good with throwing knives. Taught Guts how to throw knives. And Pippin, the strongest warrior in the band of the Hawk, silent and mindful of his comrades and takes pretty good care of people. Damn it. This makes me madder at Griffith all over again. And Corcus was only 20. Corcus had a hard 20 years. You know, some people that you see in their 20s and you're like, damn, time's been rough on you. That's Corcus. Wow. Pretty and petty and vain. Cock of the walk, admires Griffith and is annoyed by Guts. Okay, I want everybody to make note. I realize now, looking at the side-by-side comparisons, that Corcus and Gaston really don't look anything alike. But in my defense, if you stare at them side by side, they both have the same bangs. So it is not unreasonable to see why I got confused in those moments, as you can tell. Yes. Oh man, Dante, Rigel, Errol, I don't remember any of these guys. They all went and gone. Charlotte, she don't get skill sets. The princess just now woke up. So she's 20. Damn. Well, she's 20 now. Princess of Midland and first in line to the throne. A mild-mannered and dreamy princess and Griffith's fiancée. I don't know why they haven't married her yet to him. I don't know what he's waiting on. I really don't. He's just holding off because he doesn't want to get married to a woman. Anyway, I know he's had sex with her, but that's beside the point. She looks exactly like her mom, though. And then the king, oh my God. Wow. Look at how much he's changed over the course of this series. Crazy. An excellent ruler, but he harbored an obsession for Charlotte, who looks like the former queen. He lost his daughter to Griffith and questioned his own sanity. Well, yes, quite a bit. Then there was the Queen of Midland. Then there was Julius. Oh man, poor Julius. Remember that? And Anna. We haven't hardly had anything with Anna. She looks like, I just the other day for the first time watched American Psycho. I've never seen that movie before all the way through, and I watched it the other day. It's amazing. I was kind of obsessed with it for various reasons. But Anna, she looks like the secretary to Patrick Bateman. She looks like the secretary. Her hair is just in a bun instead of down. She looks exactly like the actress that plays her. Wow. Mosgus, oh my God. Mosgus gets stats. 42. A fanatic fundamentalist. Everything is according to God's will. Look at his stamina. It's like off the charts. What? And then the devoted torturers. Here's the thing. What's so interesting is we got actually a lot with them, but simultaneously not a lot with them. I was really expecting more of their like stories to be told, but Miura really didn't focus on it. I mean, it was just barely there in the conviction arc. Then there's Ganishka. Now, he doesn't get a stat thing either, which is interesting. You could say he's an epically gigantic stalking horse. Interesting. Okay. I do think that the way they did his history, though, in volume 34 was really well done. Oh, but Daiba gets, I guess maybe Ganishka doesn't get a stat thing because he's dead, but Pippin and Judo did, but Daiba gets one. Daiba is a little bit like Shirk in terms of the emotional strength and intelligence. We don't know his age, but it says, join forces with the Ganishka with an eye on establishing a magic kingdom, now as a wandering sorcerer. Oh, and I like he has a little leg brace that Erica made for him. That's super cute. Yeah, Erica was so sweet. Where's her page? Where's Erica's page? We need one for her. Psylocke, man, Psylocke, look at that bottom thing. Like physical strength and stamina, maybe not so much, but emotional strength, intelligence, legarity, yes, please. He's 25. Interesting. He's like the eldest among them. Oh, his eyes are deep green. Ooh, I am all for that, actually. Present head of the Bakaraka, proficient with concealed weapons, cares more strongly than anyone about what becomes of his clan. And I think that's so interesting because you have these three forces from the beginning that we followed around. We have Psylocke, we have Griffith, and we have Guts. And we have Guts, who's kind of in the middle. Guts cares about himself and his personal well-being, but he also cares about his little group, his found family, his small connected community. Not a big community, mind you, but he cares about the people in his inner circle and himself. Then you have Psylocke, who doesn't necessarily care about himself, but he cares about his community and like what's all around him. Not just the close, tiny knit group, but the bigger picture. Then you have Griffith, who is kind of the opposite of Psylocke. Griffith cares about himself and only the community if it is to benefit himself. Whereas Psylocke is the polar opposite of that. So that's fascinating to me. Interesting. And he's connected to Raxus, who wants to kill Griffith. So we'll see where that goes. But yeah, we get the Bakaraka. Man, remember those days? Remember those days? And then, man, Aison and Samson, Boscone, Junon. Remember these guys? Damn. There's Erica. I was like, you better include her in this. We're family. Aw. Oh, she's 11. Oh, she's way younger than I thought. Oh. Girl is 11 and a badass. What? I thought she was like 15 or 16. She's only 11 and Rickert's 19, so there is a big age difference between them. Okay. Well, that makes a lot more sense now with him not being as close to her when they were in Falconia because she's only 11. So she's got to grow up first. But damn, girl being 11 years old and being like, I'm going with the Kushan and all this. That's crazy. A cheerful child found on a battlefield and raised by Godo, simple and innocent, like family to Rickert. I would like her to become more than family to Rickert, but she's too young for that now. She's got to grow up. Damn. That's so crazy. Okay. Wow. They're on the same wavelength. I love that. And then Godot was 68, a stubborn old man, a blacksmith artisan, forged guts his big sword and cannon. Oh, I love Godot. Luca! There we go. Luca, 27. The dependable big sister type, woman of the world, and former harlot, hostess of an inn used to house refugees. She is the Mary Sue of this series. Girl can do nothing wrong, right? Then Nina. What does it say about Nina? We had the 3 other ones. It said a former prostitute who lived with Luca, captured for being a heretic. Nina was a coward who sold out her companion to save herself. When the Tower of Conviction collapsed, she awakened to a desire to live and set on a journey with Joachim, who was burdened with the same sins. Okay, but it doesn't say if she lived or died. Then there was Jerome, but Jerome and Luca broke up. Well, too bad. And then Joachim. Interesting. We had Gambino and Sis. Yep. And then Jill, sweet Jill. I hope we see her again, maybe. And then Van Diemen. And then Serpico's mom. Damn, Serpico's mom. Terrifying. And then Yzma's mom, who's a Marrow. And then the Flower Storm Monarch. And then Flora. So it says, what is magic? Well, okay. And, they explain how the magic is explained in the story. Okay. So the physical world, the astral world, and the world of the idea. So this world is a triad, and everything in the physical world has a corresponding overlap in the other 2 worlds, because the solids, liquids, energy, and gas of the physical world resonate with the workings of the elementals, symbolized by the earth, water, fire, and wind of the astral world. It's possible to use the power spirits of magic. And my theory is that Griffith and the God Hand want to invade the world of the idea, because if you can invade the world of the idea, you probably can control everything. Because it says the world of the idea is the world of soul, the origin of existence. As with the astral world, it's said to overlap the physical world. My thing is, there was that chapter that was cut out, chapter 83, that I think deals with the world of idea. And I feel like Miura cut that chapter out later because he was like, that seems like too soon. I might want to expand on the world of the idea and save that for later and have that be one of the overarching like final destinations. So he cut that chapter out because it was a preview to it. And maybe he's going to change some things with it. That could be why he got that chapter out of there. We don't know. But yeah, nice. And then we have basically how Farnese becomes a mage. The example spells, the talismans, how all that works. I like some of these drawings. The cutie collection. From pretty girls to cats. These sweet flowers bloom on the macho battlefield. Macho man. What are our odds here? We have Colette. Oh yeah, Colette was the girl that died because she got possessed. Yep. A violent change due to possession and death. Oh, Theresia's mom. A beautiful wife like her was a heretic? I sympathize with the Count. And she looks just like her daughter, so the sight of her in the act is perverted. Yep. Oh, then there was Mary. A pretty girl who works at the pub where the band of the Hawk Commanders went to. The fact that Corcus wouldn't stop hitting on her was quite the misfortune. Insistent flirting. Just say no. Why is it her problem? What? She has to work there. Don't give Mary a hard time because Corcus didn't get the hint. Yeah, you could just say no, but she's also working on the clock and wants your tips. Also, pick up a social cue and shut up. Grumble. The pretty boys galore. Oh my God. This feels like it's going to get real awkward real quick. Attendance at the estate of the governor, General Ginnon, who later gets to have Griffith as well. The truth is they're captive pleasure slaves. Governor Central Shotokan deserves to die. This is so this is, it's satirical in a way. Sure. This is so bizarre. Wilde's women. Excellent taste in women. Wilde is enjoying himself plenty, as you'd expect. It's aggravating all these beauties around him. The girl at the top of the above panel is, in particular, is way cute. I didn't put booze in this cup because I took headache medicine earlier today, and you're not supposed to mix alcohol with headache medicine. I'm regretting these decisions now. What is this, Dark Horse? The context of these women getting raped by Wilde. Oh, she's plenty cute, though. What are you doing? What are you doing, book? What are you doing? There you have it. Casca, as she appeared as Griffith's wife within his vision. She was wonderful as the big sister unit commander, but the ponytailed young wife is super cute. I'm guessing these are all making fun of the fact that these women had horrible ends. I'm guessing it's supposed to be making fun of it and like, ha ha ha, isn't this funny? Thomas, an ill-fated boy whose parents were killed by the pseudo-apostles. He was used as bait for Guts' plan, and then he wet himself. Guts should reimburse him for his underwear. This is clearly making fun of it, but in good taste, I'm not so sure. Oh yeah, the girl who gave flowers to Griffith, a sweet girl who brought flowers for Griffith when he was all busted up, but afterwards she came to a bad end when Wilde and his men showed up in pursuit. Wilde must pay! Yikes. Maybe that's the only page for that. Oh no, there's more. Oh no, there's more. Senile old donkey, happy to just chomp away. Oh, the one that attacked Isidro. Hannah, a beauty whose husband and brother were killed by trolls. After being abducted and raped, a troll fetus chewed its way out of her abdomen. The beautiful really do die young. A death that's too sad. I didn't realize that was her. What? Oh my God. Was this for the best? Children who were sold into slavery after their parents were hanged. The exploits of Isidro Mule in mustache armor rescued them. They made for Falconia. Good for them? Mule followed Sonia and got roped into battle with pirates. And he's given quite the threat. Being a pretty boy isn't easy. Falconia is arranged so beautifully, it's a tiny bit scary. But there are also cute kitties like this in town, and that's kind of a relief. This is so satirical, but it's in such bad taste that I'm like, oh no. It's like so cringy and secondhand embarrassment. Some of the beauties went into the demon womb. The beautiful women taken prisoner by the Kashan. Unless they were rescued, they'd be victims of the demon womb. I'm glad they were saved. Really glad. Oh my God. I don't know what I just read, but I can't believe they approved that. I'm glad we can poke fun at it, right? See? Assault is fun. Oh my God. Ah! Anyway. Oh, those are the astral world. Are we going to get anything on the God hand? Let's move on to that. Dear God. Femto. For whom the God hand longed. What is their goal in accomplishing this? That'd be great to know. Uh-huh. Right. Yep. The wings of darkness. Yes, it said he assaulted Casca as if taunting Guts with the act. Yes, I'm glad they established that. Void! Here we go. The leader of the guardian angels who fulfilled the desires of the chosen ones. The leader of the God hand, executor of the will of someone lurking in the astral world abyss. When someone possessing a behelit is seized with intense desire or despair, and the laws of causality become binding, Void opens an extra-dimensional space and descends. He seems to be in charge of the invocation of doom that reincarnates humans as apostles. So he's the one that is in charge of all of them, and he's the one tying this all together. And he has the ability to distort space. Yep, so he has the ability to distort time and space to send attacks back. Yeah. He's the main God Hand, and honestly, he's the one that was there in the prior group of the God Hand, so Void's been there the longest. Also, it makes sense now that Void, whenever they did the different realms that they were all in, they focused on Void and it was just the brain, like just the mind. I wish we'd get more information. Slan, the whore princess of the uterine sea, who dangerously toys with Guts. A female member of the God Hand with bat-like wings has an interest in Guts, who survived the eclipse and continues to resist. When Guts opens and visits the Qliphoth, Slan manifests using troll entrails as a medium. She seems to be on intimate terms with the Skeleton Knight, addressing him as Your Majesty. Well, I feel like she does that to anybody. We don't know if she actually has intimate relations. Yeah, she's basically just like every stereotypical femme fatale stereotype. Ubik. Oh. Misleads by showing people the truth about their past and their hearts. Ubik's lower half is made up of short tentacles, and he's always floating the talkative type. He beguiles people with fair words and also has the ability to project a person's past or their innermost thoughts. Interesting. Oh yeah, because that was the Theresia. Yeah. Then there's Conrad, a guardian angel of few words and many mysteries. A short member of the God Hand with a distinctive shell on his back, Conrad doesn't say much, but he seems to take an active part in the invocation of doom. His personality and principal abilities are still shrouded in mystery. Yeah, so Ubik can show you your past, or he can show you your desires, but they're probably warped because God Hand. We don't know anything about Conrad, and Slan is a slut. Then there's the Behelits. Okay. The Skeleton Knight. Yep. He has ties with the God Hand run deep, particularly with Void, who was around when he became who he is. So, you know. All right. With a stern and just heart. Despite his ominous appearance, the Knight's words and deeds are sincere. He's willing to rescue the weak or those who face their struggles with dignity. He's apparently gone on fighting the Inhumans for an entire millennium. Oh, what are his connections with the Supreme King Gaiseric? Supreme King Gaiseric is said to have suddenly appeared 1,000 years ago during a warring age, subjugated the nations locked in a maelstrom of conflict, and erected a great empire. In battle, he always wore a helmet modeled after a skull. Folklore says his audacious behavior in pursuit of extravagance brought divine wrath down upon him, and the Holy See tells an anecdote of a sage imprisoned by Gaiseric who pleaded with God to send an angel. A skull and an angel. Well, that sounds just like the Skeleton Knight and the God Hand. Could there be some connection? Oh, why don't you just come out and say it? Oh my God. Oh, okay. The Embryo. The child of Guts and Casca that roamed through another dimension. Well, there's our confirmation. Are they going to explain how all this works? Casca was raped by Finto while pregnant with Guts' child, and it was born imbued with evil. It existed in the vicinity of the astral world, but sometimes it appeared in the physical world. Later on, it was swallowed by the egg of the perfect world. It appeared when Casca was in danger and threatened her assailants. Its strength ran out at the Tower of Conviction, but was discovered by the egg of the perfect world and became the vessel of Griffith's incarnation. So, driven away by people for how awful he looked, he lived deep in the hole that he dug. He found fulfillment in hatching the perfect world he desired via Griffith's incarnation. He looked to be at peace as he died. A tragic man who longed for the perfect world. This persecuted human lived in the Tower of Conviction's garbage dump and was then reincarnated as an apostle. He had the ability to give powers of his choosing to people of his choosing, which he did in the case of Mosgus and the heretics. The great goat. The Skeleton Knight badly wounded him with a swing of his sword. So yeah, it's kind of weird because when we think of humans becoming apostles, we think that that's the metamorphosis. But the egg of the world was already an apostle. And the embryo was not an apostle. So the embryo becomes the vessel for Griffith, and the egg just kind of like, the apostle just kind of dies and sacrifices itself. So, Oh, yeah. It said the emissary from Elfhelm, Guts sensed the boy's presence as a light that held him back from rampaging in berserker armor and later guided him out of the sea god's body. Shirk sensed a mysterious odd from the boy and surmised that he could have been an emissary. What could the truth be? A mysterious boy who appears on nights with the full moon. A boy with long hair who appeared to Guts' party when they were en route to the port city of Vertanis. He took to Casca but then abruptly disappeared, and after he appeared on Yzma's island, he again suddenly vanished. It's hard to overlook how he appears on nights with a full moon when magic power strongly manifests. And he clearly looks like Guts and Casca, but that whole incident. We're not going to get into that. We're not going to get into that business. No. Okay. And then, yep, Guts' childhood of wandering. All of that. Judo's elf dust. Yep, Guts departed the band, leaving behind the glory that they won. Oh, here, I want to say this. Griffith's error. The hawk loses everything and crashes. Perhaps due to the heartbreak over Guts leaving. Griffith trespassed into Charlotte's chambers and made love to her. The king of Midland, abnormally obsessed with his daughter, arrested Griffith and tortured him. This marked the loss of the Band of the Hawk's glory. Griffith used Charlotte's love for him to make love to her. What was going through his mind at this point? Well, we've talked about that enough, but anyway. So we got all that. Oh, why? Go through that damn eclipse again. Basically, like, let's go through all of the journey all over again. Everything that happened. Griffith reincarnated as is in the physical realm. Yep. After returning alive from the eclipse, Casca gave birth to a demonic embryo. And then it was taken into its body. Are this going to get to volume 41, I'm wondering? Because we go through everything here. Meeting Shirk. Go to Charlotte's rescue from Wyndham. I do like that shot of Guts with the blood on his face, like after he comes out of the armor, and he has that tender look in his eye. That's always one of my favorite panels of Guts. I really like that one. Yep. But then everybody's all going through the battle there for Midland. Skull Knight messes up. And then they arrive at Elfhelm in volume 48. Oh, will Casca... I guess did this all conclude around the end of volume 38? Really? Will she regain her mind? What is Griffith's ultimate goal? Says Griffith's ambition of gaining his own kingdom, which has been embraced since the days of old in the Band of the Hawk, can in a sense be considered fulfilled now with the appearance of Falconia and his reign there. But as he's known for a long time, his longing will never be satisfied, and he'll keep aiming higher and higher. What will a man who changed the world for the sake of his goal aim for next? Well, like I said, he's going to go try to take over the world and then go into the realm of idea. That's like the next logical place you can go to, right? So Guts can't escape the Hawk. What will his next action be? Even as he harbors the desire for revenge against Griffith, Guts has prioritized Casca and reached Elf Island. But Griffith's specter was always flickering in view deep in his heart. Will he be able to free himself from the Hawk? Well, that just got a lot harder thanks to this whole revelation. Yeah, but what? Ridiculous. Okay. Oh my God. What is this? Thrilling apostle diagnosis. If you were reincarnated, what kind of apostle would you be? An easy examination will tell your future. Oh my. Okay, well, let's do this. We'll do this. We got time. We might as well. Do you feel unsatisfied with your current life? Yes or no? No. Wait, unsatisfied. I don't feel unsatisfied. What do you want to do for your future? Get married or save money? I'm going to go with saved money. You've become an apostle and you see two sacrifices. Which do you attack? The young woman with the dark brown skin or the tough guy dressed in black? Seems like pointed answers. I'm going to pick the tough guy dressed in black. You've been dragged into an eclipse. What do you do? Look for a way out. Escape from reality. Ooh. Do I escape from reality or do I look for a way out? Looking for a way out seems like so I'm going to choose escape from reality. It said I'm type K. Okay, so we have to see what type K is. Oh, I'm just a pseudo-apostle. That's all. Too bad. Okay, I am going to go back, though, and redo that. So if I had picked married instead of save money, because I was torn on that one. I was like, ooh, I could do both. So if I picked get married, if you saw a pretty village girl, you would tell her I love her or go on and kill her. Well, I couldn't kill her, so I'd have to pick the first one, tell her I love her. Which of these is the worst way to die? Ooh, cut in half by a giant sword or shot up by a repeating bowgun? The worst way to die, I'm going to say the bowgun, because at least if you're chopped in half, you might bleed out and die quicker. But the bowgun, you might suffer for a while. So I'm going to pick the bowgun. Your lover cheated on you. I'll hate my lover and who they cheated on, or I'll hate myself for being worthless. No, I'm going to hate the lover. A long vacation begins tomorrow. What will you do? Go to the beach or mountains or enjoy books, movies, etc. at home? I'm going to enjoy books or movie, etc. at home. All right. Which kind of job would you prefer? The glamorous entertainment industry or a steady, possibly plain civil service job? That one is, I'm going to choose, just because the civil service job makes you a pseudo-apostle again, I'm going to choose the glamorous entertainment industry. It says the invocation of doom arrives at last. What will you sacrifice? Your favorite plaything? Your favorite lover? Or myself, as I have nothing? Ooh. Well, if I sacrifice myself, I'm just a pseudo-apostle. So I have to pick my favorite plaything or my lover. I don't think I could sacrifice my lover because they loved me. So I'd have to say plaything. So I'm E. I'm Raxus. Oh, well, I was originally a pseudo-apostle, so I was not sacrificing people. But if I had gone that route, I would have been Raxus. It says mysterious, temperamental, and a little dangerous. You're kind of elusive as is, and becoming an apostle will make you a phantasmagoric mystery man. Change shape as it suits you, go where curiosity leads, and toy with your prey. You know, Raxus is the one that wants to get rid of Griffith, so I'm okay with this. Oh, Miura's writing history. Okay. Wow. This is quite a bit. This is a lot, actually. Okay. Wow. This is a big, long interview. So let's dive into this, shall we? Interviewer. Berserk is currently published up to volume 38, and a new TV anime series is being broadcast. Oh, so this must have been around 2016. This production has lived on for an extremely long time. Please share with us your feelings having drawn it up to this point. As I go on writing, there are periods when things get festive, such as during anime adaptations. But there are also times when I'm just quietly working on a manuscript, so there's a contrast to my feelings. Right now, the TV anime has things hyped up, so it's a time when I feel a real sense of having made something. The wild ride doesn't last forever, though. So I'll eventually go back to my plain daily life and get locked back into my battle with the manuscript. Ha ha ha. I've received recognition for doing this for so long, but my feelings towards my manuscripts are still the same as when I was a rookie. A manga artist always ends up with his head filled with the manuscript that's sitting on his desk at that time. When you spend every day focused on it, you get the greatest sense of satisfaction when you finished all the pages and look back over it. And by the time it's finished, your mind moves on to the next manuscript. It does move on. And in your own mind, the previous manuscript is inferior to the current one. There have been so many times when I couldn't be satisfied with my art, and I regretted it when it looked to me like I'd cut corners. In that case, I decided to push myself to the limit each time, or at least draw until I'm satisfied. There are some shrewd manga artists who say, I'm going to halt progress on the art here and work on improving the storyboards. But maybe I can only find satisfaction through drawing. That kind of makes sense, though, with him, because with his pacing, if you notice, he can stretch out a chapter to just have scenes that he's drawn that don't really forward the plot, but maybe that's just his way of working through it, I guess. Now is one of those festive times. What is the mood in your workplace? Well, right now, the staff are excited watching the anime on air each week, and they're nervously eager to check out the online posts. We're enjoying ourselves. When this festival ends, we intend to switch back to the daily routine of confronting just the manuscript, ha ha ha, with there sometimes being other media developed and sometimes not. My feelings go all over the place, but I would rather accept that sensation and experience things as they come. Maybe I have a knack for not fighting against my circumstances. That's quite a flexible way of thinking. This varies depending on the manga artist, but once you experience a festive period, sometimes once it finally ends, you get to missing it and you find yourself no longer able to draw. This goes for serialization too. But let's say, for instance, you land a big hit in the boys' manga magazine when you're young. You're hit with the busy demand of the serialization lifestyle before you really grow as a person. And after the serialization ends, all you're left with is your exhausted humanity, and you end up unable to draw. There are times when you should continue a manga and times when you shouldn't. So I want to have a mindset that fits whenever and wherever I am at such times. How did Berserk come about as a manga in the first place? When I came up with Berserk in the 80s, manga was, for better or worse, ill-mannered. It was a time when we were trying greedily to take interesting elements from movies and other popular things and use them to come up with something new. So the most amazing pieces of entertainment were Hollywood movies, and a lot of works used those as models. Berserk was in fact a hodgepodge of things I enjoyed and found interesting at the time, such as Hollywood movies and Fist of the North Star. It was like other manga and anime at the time, rather than being based on some special thought or thought process. Ha ha ha. Did it all start out with the image of Guts, the main character? It was Guts' gimmick, or rather his style. He's a dark hero, or dark nihilistic type, like Hakaider from Android Kakaider. It's hard sometimes to read a little bit this because of this imposed image of Guts behind it. And began with the concept of the Black Swordsman. Then I went from one idea to the next. If he's dark and nihilistic, well, what kind of character should I make him? And since ordinary swordsmen aren't interesting, how should I individualize him? Then from Dororo, which I liked, I got the idea to attach something to one of his arms. As for the Dragon Slayer, large swords were featured in stories like Gwyn Saga and Pygmalion, but those were just drawn as big swords. This didn't deal with what it would actually be like if someone swung one and if people witnessed it. As I mentioned a bit ago, this was the heyday of Hollywood films, so live action was the entertainment king. They didn't have CG like they do today. So in both The Terminator and RoboCop, people were trying as hard as they could to act like machines. They had that sense of using physical acting to portray a superhuman. So I started out with the live action ideas, or if there really was a person with a big sword, how much muscle would he need? And if he swung it, what would that action be like? And that would be how Guts' appearance came about. At first, there was only a blowgun attached to his one arm, handled like a concealed weapon, but the impact was weak. And his sword play was originally a Japanese sword. I had an idea for an Asian guy with a Japanese sword and a gimmick on his left hand to run around the setting like a medieval Europe, but I mulled it over when suddenly it clicked as the right ideas were the Dragon Slayer and the prosthetic arm and cannon. I think it's an interesting balance, the way it was more incredible than reality, but not so much that it demolishes reality. For example, there's an American comic character named Captain America in the Marvel hero movies. In terms of abilities, he's a little more incredible than an Olympic athlete, making him a lot weaker than the other heroes. But when this portrayed accurately in live action, it really inspires you. It's real enough to be within the realm of imagination, so it makes you wonder if you could do what he does too. If you just trained your body enough. On the other hand, if somebody can fly, then you can't relate to that. So I wanted to give the impression with the Dragon Slayer that someone with a pro wrestler muscle might be able to swing it once or twice. Thus, I came up with the appearance of Guts. Now, where do these things progress from here? Ha ha ha. So motivations and background came later. Well, that actually is the most proper sequence. For example, as long as Ultraman has that visual, the Spacium Ray, and you know he's from Nebula M78, the rest that follows along afterwards. I think such works built from a style that can run for a long time, the contents and direction change to fit the times, but a good style will be inherited and loved forever. Once Guts' style was decided, the next came his interior. He's a dark hero, so revenge makes for good motivation. And prior to the reason for his revenge, I tried to think about what manner he'd get his revenge. Does that mean rather than delving into his mind, you thought about where things would lead? Yes. At first, I envisioned Guts as a hero who can get angry, like Max in Mad Max or Kenshiro in Fist of the North Star. I focused on how to make him get angry, how to make him get revenge, and how to effectively display his appearance and gimmicks. And what resulted after that struggle was the original Black Swordsman. At that point, there was no Band of the Hawk or anything. So the Black Swordsman's fight unfolds in 2 or 3 volumes. I realized with the slug count that as I was making a story about Guts defeating monsters, the monsters were becoming steadily more human. When the monster's flashback scene happened, he looked like a pitiful human, and Guts, on the other hand, looked steadily more like a monster. Then when the monster is defeated and their feelings mingle and that giant sword comes swinging down, it felt like an amazing catharsis. Thus did I establish the fixed flow of the Black Swordsman. But right about that time, I decided that Animal House, the magazine that was serializing the story, was no longer going to be published. I was going to have to go back to square one. And so, without being noticed by society, I had a project that Mr. Bronson originally written. So I like to think that editor and choose which one to continue. The usual decision would, of course, choose the name Bronson, but one way or another, I had to push for my own original work. And so the Golden Arc was explored as a result. No matter how fully formed the character of Guts was in my mind, this was a newcomer manga, and it wasn't going to live up to Mr. Bronson's established reputation. I also liked girls manga, so I thought about changing my approach by taking from stories with sad and painful human relationships and emotions. Until then, I'd been charging down the Fist of the North Star route, but that made it harder to contend with the original itself, Mr. Bronson. It was a good opportunity, so I thought I'd switch weapons and come from the angle of the Rose of Versailles. And this was the new ground for me. I figured maybe I could put people around me into the story as well as memories from my youth. You mean you use people in your daily life as models? I didn't especially have any teachers when it comes to manga, so I didn't know what was proper. I had always been under the impression that a manga artist dreams up things that don't exist in reality. So I tried it and realized it was proper, and I was incorporating my own experiences that are close to me. So naturally, there would be feeling there, and the lies would evaporate. Ha ha ha. I think the Golden Age arc went well that way. And whenever I combine with reality with imagination, I don't view my own circumstances as being all that dramatic. So I suppose I was able to strike a good balance. I would do things like taking my high school manga buddies and dropping them into a mercenary band led by a guy who's working towards some goal. But while I'm happy that went well, the purpose of this arc was to give Guts a reason for revenge. So it occurred to me that I'd made a bunch of really great characters and they were all going to die. So basically, yeah, basing them all off of, you knew from the start how it was going to end. I knew the eclipse was coming, so there truly was nowhere to run. Also, there's a reason I made the Golden Age arc as long as it was. I felt dissatisfied with the so-called flashback scenes in a number of works. It's typical to stick flashbacks in just a short break to maintain the pace of the story, but I wanted to potentially feel from the bottom of my heart the reason for Guts' revenge and the basis of his character development. If the flashback lasts only a short time, it runs the risk of merely amounting to information. Since I'm the one drawing it, I need to make more of the story that you can invest in emotionally, and that's how it ended up becoming so long. Ha ha ha. But it's because this happened to Guts' anger that it comes through sufficiently. I had to make something that readers would accept was enough to make anybody angry. Because of that, it came down to how dramatically and naturally I could depict Guts, fully forming his precious bonds with people. For the relationship between Guts and Griffith, I'm using myself and my close friend and fellow manga artist Koji Mori as a model. Which one of us is Guts and which one of us is Griffith switches from time to time. But I think it serves as a symbol of male friendship. So, let's see. You put so much emotion into those characters, and when the eclipse happens, they're all gone. That must have left some scars on you as the artist. I was emotionally invested in each character, so I felt more depressed than scarred. And the story went way down in popularity with the readers around the time of the eclipse. Really? Many readers were furious that I do such a thing to the characters they liked. Oh, okay, yeah. My editor at the time was concerned, but also of the opinion that we just had to follow it through to the end. The point I had to pay attention to was to make sure the flow of the story wasn't completely severed with the eclipse. That's why I spared Casca. If she had died and the serialization continued for a long time, I feared the reason for revenge would become something of the past. And if Guts were to establish new relationships, then his incentive would waver. It may seem calculating and unpleasant, but it's because Casca's by his side that he can never forget about the eclipse. So he was going to kill her off, but then was like, oh, that won't make for a good story. What? Had you settled on how things would develop after the eclipse? The Golden Age arc was so long, so to return to Dark Guts once again, I had to display the early Black Swordsman style and remind people. That's why, for the Lost Children chapter, the story style is the same as for the Slug Count. The same is true in that respect that in the flashback scene, the monster's humanity emerges, and when he defeats her, Guts is the one who looks like a monster. It couldn't be exactly the same, though, so I featured Rosine, the oddball apostle. During the Dark Guts period, prior to the Golden Age arc, I wasn't sure whether to go with pure fantasy or historical tale. I looked into the eerie underside of actual European history, such as Count Dracula. And I had the idea for Guts to hunt monsters that could be framed within a factual historical context. But once the Band of the Hawk took firm shape, fictitious country names like Midland had emerged, so the historical route went away and became fantasy. In that case, I would have to make thorough use of content typical of fantasy: elves, witch hunts, magic, pirate ships, content representative of medieval Europe. Around that time I was able to draw fantasy. There were hardly any fantasy manga in Japan. When it comes to fantasy, even games like Dragon Quest and Final Fantasy are of a different nature than old school foreign fantasy. Even Lord of the Rings was a novel known to those in the know, and Gwyn Saga only had so many fans. Fantasy was starting to become known via novels and games and such, but it wasn't a well-known genre at all. Boys' manga magazines at the time were filled with stories of fighting delinquents in school uniforms, and there was no room for fantasy to squeeze in. But I still had the idea of making this adventure of Dark Guts, even if it meant taking the risk of making it a fantasy story. I think the fantasy look of Disney productions works all over the world in any era. To put that world into view, into broad terms, when it comes to Once Upon a Time There Was, if you put anything beyond that into the setting, it'll end up looking obsessive from a generic standpoint. Once you start tossing in countries, weapons, proper nouns, it just gets that much more obsessive. That's why the opening apostles were the Snake Baron and Slug Count. I didn't even give them names. And using Disney examples, a character doesn't suddenly get tossed into a parallel world. They go to another realm that's connected to part of the regular world, and it's there that a monster first appears. Beauty and the Beast is usually set in the medieval world, but the mansion is the other world. The Beast is there. It's common with today's fantasies that the setting is another world right from the start, but as us old guys had to work hard for it. I like that a lot, yeah. Also, everybody that's like, it's based on historical events, like Miura just said outright that it's more fantasy than that, so no. In other words, Puck is one of Berserk's fantasy symbols. How did this concept come about? Well, that's Disney too. For some reason, there's this image that the main character of a fantasy has some small thing tagging along with them, like Pinocchio and his cricket. It did occur to me, though, that Guts with an adorable elf might look too extreme. And that's what's convenient about Puck, is how nice and half-assed he is. It's been a long time since he became Chestnut Puck, but his personality is actually quite unusual. It's because he's an elf that I think it's okay for his characterization to be vague. In Lost Children, he empathizes with Jill and the others and becomes sad, and when he's with Isidro, he gets cheeky, and I think that's fine. He's like a break for me no matter what I have to do. If it's Puck who delivers my silly jokes, my readers are more forgiving. At this point, I didn't have a character like him. Things might have reached a point where it's too oppressive to go on. Dark fantasy mood becomes easier to read when you have enough relaxed content and it doesn't ruin the mood. I figure my intention has served me well. Sometimes something tells me keeping it from getting too dark and too heavy is one of the key things that separates popular stories from the unpopular ones. At this point, I think most manga artists are aware of that, but I suppose in Berserk's case, it maintained the balance by coincidence. And in my case, I feel I have a centered psychological makeup. I don't go overboard about things, but instead naturally settle into the same balance as the reader. My thinking is what feels good to me should generally feel good to the reader too. That's quite a sizable weapon to have in your arsenal as a writer. Many manga artists make a weapon of obsessive niche knowledge, but it's not a weapon for me. The only thing I'm obsessive about is my art. Everything else I research as the need arises, but then people research things related to their jobs, and that's not unique to the manga industry. That's the extent to which I gloss over with my art. I have a knack for approximating something with my art, and then it ends up looking profound, and that works out well. Yeah. Do you have any tricks for referencing materials? There's no time, so I have to choose materials that are exemplary or whatever. Researching down to the details is impossible unless you go at it using human wave tactics. Furthermore, in my case, I'm focusing more on the author's conclusions as I cursorily read a book for its themes and information. Like for the witch hunt and the conviction arc, what kind of thing does the author of these materials think witch hunts were? I read 2 or 3 books for the conviction arc, but what I learned from them was that witch hunts represent an unseen fear in the Middle Ages that people collectively embodied. When people experienced fear, they ended up manifesting it, and a group manifestation turns into a witch hunt. And in this chapter, Griffith is incarnated and becomes active not as Femto, but as the Hawk of Light. Back during the original Dark Guts days, I intended to make Femto his enemy thereafter, but by the time I finished the Golden Age arc, Griffith's character stood out too much, and I wanted him to fight Guts in that form. And in terms of the narrative, him being in the same form as before but powered up would make the course of their confrontation easier to convey. And in terms of setting, if he were Femto, he'd be acting in a different dimension. First of all, in the movie The Name of the Rose, it's the inspiration for the conviction arc. From there, I added a witch hunt, giving me the notion to depict the darker aspects of religion. There's a lot of variety within religion, but when I thought of a character who'd be the overall embodiment of religious fundamentalism, I arrived at Mosgus. Doctrine comes first, and mankind comes after. He's a further exaggeration of that. All religions, to some extent, take something above and beyond the laws of reality and human thought and treat it as absolute. When you exaggerate that idea, that's what you end up with. And I took that rigid thinking and designed it as a person. I arrived at the face with the low polygon count. I thought, wow, this guy's a total square. And when I drew him, he literally came out looking like a square. But Berserk makes a clear distinction between its one-off characters and those who participate in the drama of the main story thread. Okay, real quick before we turn the page, I like that he basically said, yeah, Griffith ended up becoming really popular, so we brought him back. Says, characters like Mosgus, Wild, and Aison are prime examples of one-offs. As with the villains of Fist of the North Star, they're interesting, but their entourage remains. For example, Daiba and Luca are entourage characters in multiple chapters. Daiba and the others have been surprisingly active recently. That's a shared story element with Gwen Saga. When the main character of that series makes his impact and then leaves the story, the characters who are around him will show up again. The landmass the story takes place on is contagious, and I get to wondering what happened to a given character after their involvement. So I need a new character. I, too, will reintroduce old ones. Says, Berserk has playfully details like that, and no matter how many times you read through it, there are new discoveries to make. Apostles are often reintroduced as well, including the ones who bit off Guts' arm during the eclipse. He's still working hard in the Reborn band of the Hawk. I was originally thinking up and designing apostles on the spot, but coming up with new monsters every time isn't easy. It'd be problematic for too many of these guys to be in the world anyway, so some of them have to appear over and over again. Oh, Borkov, look at him. All right. Of the numerous apostles, the egg of the perfect world is quite different in nature. That apostle is special. I needed to prepare something that was just right for Griffith's resurrection. And when I started the conviction arc, what ended up being an exact fit came to mind. The mental image of relying on God as a group took on his shape. He's the product of chance, and maybe he's also the natural outcome of a witch hunt. Well, he plays a different role than the previously encountered man-eating monsters. Right about that time, the topic of NEAT, not in education, employment, or training, was coming up in society. There was this popular image of people unable to become somebody, encased in their own shells, watching the world through their computers all alone in the dark. Everyone has a side that to some extent when they're young, so I sympathize with them strongly. Just about everyone experiences a scene of sitting in their room hugging their knees, feeling anxious about the future. It's all about being afraid. I got stuck on that concept of being something vague, of being something of a vague nothing, of becoming a vessel for everyone. The idea that the most insignificant being summons the most amazing being worked perfectly as the story. The term sekikai wasn't around back then, but the convention arc follows a sekikai flow. The conviction arc is awfully exaggerated, but I wanted to put together a metaphor for the world. If we place Griffith at the apex, he becomes this thing with excessive charisma. And at the same time, if we have such a sekikai deal going on, I want to strike a balance by depicting a human in a weak position with his feet planted on the ground. It's a fantastic world. I'll put in something like a realistic human. If things get horrible, I'll bring out something like Chestnut Puck. Perhaps right in the middle of drawing, I want to introduce some value system that's totally separate from, in addition to the win, lose, weak, strong, etc. After that, Griffith was resurrected and Guts picked up some traveling companions. One of them is Farnese. How did you go about creating her? I imagined Farnese as the second heroine after Casca, but I had a little trouble. I simply crammed my own taste into Casca to create her character. She's loaded with what I consider ideal. A warrior woman, dark brown, strong, but with a woman's side. But when it came time to make a new heroine, I couldn't use the same method as with Casca. So I thought I might as well make a heroine with whom the female readers could sympathize. Mori is popular with girls. So I asked for his opinion as I pondered. The concept was a female office worker who has been in society for a year or two and may not be accustomed to her job yet and is ill at ease in masculine society. She's doing her best with a band of knights in a masculine society, but she's unsociable since she can't seem to fit in with those around her. And her frustration is moving in a sexual direction, although half of it includes my own delusions. Yeah, I was like, the moment he was like, I wanted someone the girls could relate to. And I'm like, but you're also projecting your own like desires onto her character. She's doing, what does it say here? In the face of Mosgus' intense impact, such an ungrounded woman is sure to get hung up on religion. In other words, an office lady who's caught up in a dangerous new religion. That's Farnese. What about Serpico? Serpico is those female readers' dream. My intuition was that he's the kind of man they would want to have around. To be frank, he's Andre from The Rose of Versailles. For a woman exhausted by society, he cedes to her needs and considers her before all else. I thought this might be a woman's everlasting dream. To take it further, I think there are 3 dream men that a woman has. Tell me, Miura, tell me what you think women want. Someone like Serpico who sticks close by, a prince on a lofty peak for whom she longs, and someone wealthy and down to earth who will come and woo her. I don't know about that. Oh, that was me doing that. Now my dogs are like, what are you doing? So someone like Serpico who will dote on you. Someone who she can't see. I'm going to respectfully disagree with Miura on that one. I feel like if he went and read some BL, he'd probably know what women want. But, oh. And recently I saw a stage production of Ona Kaizo Blanca based on The Glass Mask by Suzu Muichi. In it, those 3 types of men show up around the heroine. I realized, oh, the same things happen by coincidence in Berserk. Farnese has Serpico close by, has Guts to long for, and Roderick the rich guy. All 3 are present and accounted for. Okay, I think I don't necessarily agree with that. I think that's a little stereotypical. But okay. He was friends with the creator of Yona of the Dawn, and March comes in like a lion. I appreciate you going to your friend Mori because he's good with the ladies, but I don't know. Maybe I would have asked the female writers that you knew and worked with what they thought a male character should be. Because here's the thing. If you've watched Yona of the Dawn or March comes in with like a lion, the 3 stereotypes that he thinks women want are not the characters that women write about as being desirable. So, okay. All right. Conversely, Guts has 3 heroines in Casca, Farnese, and Shirk. Now, wait a minute. Shirk's a kid. Let's back up here. Maybe it's just a good balance to have 3 members of the opposite sex around, although it is a coincidence here too. Good. All right, how about Isidro? Isidro was modeled on a little kid of an assistant. Oh, that was a child of the assistant. That's right. Somebody did say that. He didn't have as much grit as Isidro, but he was highly ambitious, and he'd come and say, well, how can I become like you, Mr. Miura? Teach me the right way to do it. And I would laugh. He'd say, I want to get into the swing of things, but I also want to take it easy. He'd get all worked up with this healthy delinquent boy image going on, like Kaneda from Katsuhiro Otomo's Akira. Oh, like Kaneda. Oh, wow. Yeah, I can see that. I can see like Kaneda. Absolutely. Wow, things are rough in Berserk, so Isidro fits the image of a boy stubbornly making his way through the setting. Yeah, no, that actually works out really well. All right. Berserk's characters have their positives and negatives, along with their own personal motivations, and I depict them as putting those above all else. Someone like Mosgus touts some vague purpose, like for the sake of justice, and they'll seek their own benefit even if they cooperate with those who share their goals or grow attached to a kinder person or to someone that they've once been with for a long time. It really is an ordinary balance. Berserk is another world where I want to make it possible to sympathize with how ordinary the character's humanity is. If I were to build on that, Isidro also has that child of the Showa era, Japanese history during the reign of the Emperor Hirohito from 1926 to 1989. Aspect that's within me. When I was a child, there were plenty of children overflowing with energy who were all about putting themselves first. It's a kind of mental image of one producing one's own character and securing a place for them. Children are all nice since we've entered the Heisei era, and they give the impression of caring about being in balance with their surroundings, but I'd be interested to know what they'd think if they saw Isidro. They probably wouldn't sympathize with him. Guts' party meets Shirk and heads towards the Enoch village. Had you been planning to introduce magic around that point? I depicted witch trials during the conviction arc, so I was going to end up having to do witches and magic. I went in search of lots of reference books on magic, and amongst them was a book written by someone claiming to be a real magician. It sounds shady at first, but there are magic users overseas, and they have the authoritative opinions on the subject. I thought I'd faithfully portray the way a real magician conceptualizes magic. In Japan, the game-like magic where you throw fireballs is typical, but naturally there's a concept out there in the world of actual magic that gets a little off topic. But I heard this once in some documentary. If you want to make a movie that rivals Star Wars, you can't watch Star Wars. Go watch what George Lucas was watching for the purpose of making Star Wars. Follow what's already been depicted, and you might end up with an inferior copy. Thus, you looked for the fundamentals of magic. I got my reference materials in order and decided to ponder what true magic was, or even just the impression thereof. And what I actually learned was that magic was more of an inner thing than I'd thought. It's like you generate a chain of images within you, then refresh them. Then it becomes crucial to paint a precise picture of that sensation. It's not like you chant a spell and then something pops into being. When you use magic, the important thing is to visualize the spell that's being carried out one layer higher, in the astral world, that is, and to precisely envision the vague imagery. Unless you do that, you can't express the magic of which real magic users speak. When I added magic, the visual framework of Guts defeating monsters with a big sword was in danger of collapsing. Magic couldn't be too convenient either, and that's when I struck the balance by making it invocation take time. Something else I wanted to be careful of was in games, magic sparkles. I wanted to avoid that. So I went to a description that's plain in a sense, like water mysteriously increasing in volume or tree branches shaking and stretching outward. Magic more contiguous with reality. I wanted to make real things change in a realistic way, like old movies and fairy tales like Jack and the Beanstalk. So it's not taking a lesson from the past, but I try to trace the course of old school magic. It's the same for monsters. Pocket monsters has become popular in Japan. Oh my God, he called them pocket monsters. Amazing. And there's this cute image that comes along with the term monster. I debated about what real monsters are, and they became the apostles you know. It's humans who've incorporated the power of myth, with a feel that's close to the Japanese one, Oni. That's the way I'm trying to trace the theme that I've selected back to its source. Go back to the originator, and there comes into view the original shape that's totally different from the current image. You mean have a high regard for roots. Do that, and you can put together a successful story. There's a long history of folk tales, and they're awfully public things, aren't they? On the other hand, anime and light novels that chase after constantly shifting fads, I couldn't tell you what they're going to leave behind to history. If you want your work to stick around for a long time, look closely into old things. Well, it's the hero's journey. It's There's no reason to reinvent the wheel, Shirk's appearance is partly because of Cedro showing up, but there's a second generation aspect, like with Fist of the North Stars, Bat, and Lin. So if nature takes its course, won't she and Cedro end up as a couple? Shirk is drawn to Guts, but next to the girl longing for an adult man is the boy who does his best as he steadily grows up. I have a feeling that's things as they should be. Yeah, as long as, I'm glad that it's just her having a crush on Guts and Guts being like, you're a child, no, and all that. But I like Cedro more with Yzma, but that's just me. In the long-running work, you have to take the characters and story to the next level several times or people will end up bored with it. But if you shift in a weird way, the balance collapses and the work is ruined. The Berserker armor's powers Guts up a level, and I was careful of the aforementioned pitfall as I drew. He loses all reason and his limiters are released, literally making him a Berserker. Guts has already been quite the Berserker beforehand, but I wanted to draw him in a state where he would abandon reason even more. This made for a good balance, having the magic enter the equation to keep the sword swinging. The Skeleton Knight had just shown up, so I figured I should treat the armor as if it were cursed. Had you been thinking about this ever since the Skeleton Knight appeared? I don't think this is true for all manga artists, but there are times when the significance of things I've placed suddenly comes to me as the serialization proceeds. At some point, it strikes me what something I'd been drawing for was there all along. In the end, when a person draws long enough, maybe it's the unconscious or part of their nature, but a lot of things end up neatly linking together. As for the Berserker armor, an idea occurred to me around the beginning of the Conviction arc, when the Beast of Darkness showed up. I'd felt the urge to manifest the ferocious deep psyche ever since he needed a way to do it without changing Guts' appearance. So it came to me as I drew, the Berserker armor would fully conceal Guts and transform as if devouring him. That would serve as a visual expression of instinct smothering reason, and it turned out well, if I do say so myself. After that, the story shifts from Griffith's side and becomes the dynamic struggle against Ganishka. Did you conceive these developments in order to lead to Fantasia? Yes. You could say Ganishka's an epically gigantic stalking horse. To establish a character on Griffith's level, I have to pit him against a character who's just about as incredible. It proceeds concurrently with Guts' story, so once Griffith is incarnated, Berserk turns into a story that follows two routes. I depict Griffith as a character who hardly ever talks about his own mental state, but gathering characters around him who express their feelings has the converse effect of elevating Griffith himself. Also, manga characters tend to be judged as enemies or allies, good or evil, but I'm not trying to not create Berserk using such a value system. Griffith is Griffith, and he seems appealing, but maybe from his side, Guts looks like the villain. And there are probably those who find the world that Griffith creates to be more to their convenience. From there, it's a question of what's going to happen with this setting called Fantasia. Ha ha ha. He doesn't really say anything about, he's like, oh, Griffith's not the ultimate evil. He's just Griffith. I'm like, I wish he would talk about, note that they conveniently do not talk about any of the controversial aspects of this manga. They're like, we're not gonna talk about that. Let's not do that. The Guts route is ordinary fantasy, which is unusual for Berserk. They form a party, procure a ship, and then pirates show up. There's been a lot of character development up until now, but from here they'll be completing quests. I wanted to try my hand at that kind of thing. This was unexpected, but it seemed a shame to lose. Oh, Yzma. Had you planned on having Yzma join the group? That was unexpected, but it seemed a shame to lose her, so I had her join them. When I tried putting her in, I was surprised. It was surprisingly a good balance. She fills the honest and dumb kid position, so she constantly opens her mouth and says whatever memorable thing is on her mind. I thought maybe it'd be good to have a candid kid's point of view. While Cedro is also a child, his ambition is strong, and he ends up coming across as too comical. Yzma becomes interesting when you combine her with others, so she'll stand out if she's with Cedro or Puck. I'm not sure how much exploration I can do in terms of putting her with other characters. It's nice to show the appeal of a new character, but I also want to advance the story with a surging momentum. Volume 38 has its arrival at Elf Island. This has become a big turning point. What are your honest thoughts about it? It was long in coming. But I'm always thinking, how soon is the Golden Age arc going to end? Or how soon is Falconia going to appear? I ultimately feel the same way every chapter. But I suppose Stopping before I overthink things is a secret to keeping work going a long time. If I cram too much, that creates pressure. My hands become tired and the current story is rendered inflexible. I think about it all loosely, and I first delve into things once I reach the point of drawing storyboards. I have a rough idea of what I absolutely have to do, so I can just ponder any seasoning beyond when the time comes. In particular, I often conceive ways to present things as I'm drawing. Which is interesting because it's like if he's coming up with ideas as he's drawing, I'm curious how much he left to Mori or how much Mori has that Mori has to kind of fill in the gaps with. Again, I feel for Mori. I don't envy him at all. If this were an ordinary manga, I'd only be able to draw from the viewpoints of the main character and the typically active characters. But if I'm going to portray Griffith as the character who has people following him, then I have to portray the viewpoints of those people. If I don't put ordinary people into the story's root, I can't portray Griffith's charisma. But it's also boring to draw a story about an idea as vague as everybody. That's where Laban and the others become necessary. As I draw, I realize ordinary people are important, like Luca, Laban, Magnifico. It's not clear why Magnifico's there. But there may come a time down the road where it seems like it was a good thing he was around. Once a direction is decided upon in the story, the main character will carry you along to acts to overcome something. But if it's all you've got, it's not going to amount to anything beyond the scope of a movie. Serialized manga run long, you know. For the blank spaces, you need characters that are representatives of ordinary people. Ordinary people show you everyday life, so there's a sense of linkage to the fantasy's worldview. So they're basically like just glorified stock characters. Of course, there's also the approach of making a story using only dramatic elements, and maybe those are especially prevalent in works aimed at young children. In stories set in schools where people have remarkable abilities, for example, aren't those worlds aimed and almost made up entirely of characters from the same generation? There are no older men or women, and if you're not careful, even parents don't show up. But at that point, the world you depict is limited. Of course, it becomes a story thick with characters and a worldview the readers like, but that's not the way I'm building mine. I'm drawing a window onto another world, where ordinary people, useless people, children, and old people are all living in ordinary ways. The camera is moving, so of course my plans is to choose what I need as the situation demands, but useless things are also part of the world, so I can't help but draw them. I don't ever write dialogue ahead of time. Oh! When I'm doing storyboards, I try to concisely place appropriate text in the locations that are important, or else I get rid of lines. The more important a scene, the less dialogue I use. So that scene where it was just Griffith taking over from that one king was the most important chapter in all of Berserk since it had no dialogue? Sure. In the step prior to what I've been known to mix in unnecessary lines, so perhaps that means I'm worrying over vocal modulation. I also think there are parts of the story where I rely on my art. No, that's that. Yeah, that chapter with Griffith taking over for that one king is just relying on the art. Absolutely, 100%. That makes me very curious because the fact that he says he mostly develops his dialogue as he's drawing, well, then that means he probably didn't leave a lot of dialogue to Mori to use. Just concepts. So it really will be Mori's Berserk, not Miura's anymore. Huh. I do what I naturally do when I want to convey something to someone. Just because there are a lot of words, it doesn't mean my true meaning comes across. My passion level might come across, though. I suppose if I want to convey something using one or two important words will do. I think it's balanced. In the end, I put so much detail in my art. If the dialogue is limited, it will have that much more impact. And I think the resulting dialogue leaves an impression on the reader. I asked you earlier about the story's current turning point of the arrival at Elf Island, but is there anything you want to attempt hereafter with Berserk? I've gone pretty far and wide with this whole thing, so I'd like to tidy up the stuff I've done so far. As for new things, I'd like to move forward in preparation for building towards the showdown between Guts and Griffith. Well then, please pass along a message for the fans who bought this book, both for new readers and for those who have followed along for many years. I suspect there are young readers who started reading Berserk during this festive time. Fantasy has its own history, and even now I'm continuing to use the same yakitori seasoning, that is, 80s manga, which are perhaps what all you youngsters' fathers were engrossed with back then. Those of you will find this to be of interest, so please give those older works a try. I'd be thrilled if you would support Berserk and also take the opportunity to develop an interest in the things that I was so into. And to everyone who's been reading along since the old days, Berserk is still moving ahead as it always has. I suspect you drift away at times when gaps open up in the serialization schedule, but please come back when you get curious. I'm still here working on Berserk, and I want to maintain my health as I somehow make it to the conclusion. As ever, here's to the future. Thank you very much. Damn. That is wild. Wow, the workspace. Wow. I'm always interested to see an author's workspace. So he has that model of that figurine. Well, that if you're going to draw guts, you got to have that anatomy there, right? Wow, all the images there. Manuscripts. Wow. And currently, the manuscripts, color and monochrome are made digitally. Damn. Give us all the secrets. His library with reference materials. He has all that horse to reference. Wow. There, look, all the books on the shelf that say full moon. Sneaky. Sneaky. Wow. Ice artist and craftsman. And the pirate ship. Wow, well, he'd need that pirate ship to draw, wouldn't he? All right, the model for Guts. In 2004, so this is 20 years ago. Wow. Farnese needs a sandwich. Serpico. I like the little image of the poncho. That's actually super cute. Damn. Serpico getting all the nice drawings. Isidro. Those are cute. Shirk. Evalera. With Puck. Oh, I love these cute little drawings of Shirk. Those are adorable. I love her with her little angry face right there. That's so cute. On the right. That's so adorable. I love it. And how she makes her spells. Cute. Griffith, of course. He drew so many pictures of Griffith. Damn. Even his horse gets all of the attention. Zod. Oh, nice. Oh, I didn't realize they were little paws. Oh, his loincloth has paws on it. What? Oh, his pelt. What? Zod's underwear. Beefy. Beefy Zod. And right after him be Skull Knight, wouldn't he? Nice. I love his sword guard with the thorns. That's great. The Skeleton Knight's horse. Mr. Waffles. Why we gotta have this troll? Why we gotta do that? Ugh. Oh my god. Ew. Why? No. What will Guts and the others see on Elf Island? Well, who knows? Oh my gosh. Oh, I love the dog carrying... It almost looks like a horse carrying the casket. Damn. Oh, and there's the doll. Okay, damn. That interview was good, but for as long as it was, it was a very safe interview. It was very pageantry. It was very much, here's your main questions. There was some interesting information in there, but we're not going to address... if I were an interviewer, I would have asked a lot of different questions, but I feel like interviewers weren't asking the right questions to him because we don't want to be all controversial, but I would have asked some different questions. Okay, so talking about volume 40 and 41, volume 41's cover. How dare you, Miura? How dare you? I love Volume 40's cover. Volume 40's cover is one of my favorites. The grayscale, the dog with Farnese and Shirk on either side of him. It's one of my favorites. And I love the whole thing with Volume 41's cover is it's damn cherry blossoms that bloom for a very short amount of time and then they're gone like that. And it's like, damn it. How dare you? Yep. And then there's the cover of the guidebook. So there were posters at the very beginning, were there not? We didn't get to see those. We need to go check those out. I feel like they're all going to be digitally colored. They are. There's not Casca in her bridal wear, in her bridal Victoria's Secret lingerie. I'm going to say a controversial yet brave statement. I'm not a big fan of Miura's digital coloring. I know that he was working on it and experimenting with it, and it's new for him. I like the traditional art coloring better, but I know he was just practicing with it. Oh, wow. And there's Femto's representation with guts. Mm-hmm. Oh, so then there is the Skull Knight. Oh, with Danan at the grave. No big deal. Of there, that's totally fine. Oh, wow. I did not picture her to have auburn hair. That's interesting. I thought she'd have black hair. Fascinating. And the blue robes? Nice. Man, I bet he would have done a poster of the Moonlit Boy if he'd had time. So yeah, that was all interesting, and this has gone on for like 2.5 hours. Oh my gosh. So the guidebook, yeah. Here's the thing. What I'm gonna do, Whiteboard Kun has sat here without use this whole time, but I'm gonna wait and get some more comments before I dive into the final volume because it's gonna be the last one. So I may actually wait quite a bit longer still before I get some more comments to do the final volume, because after that, we're not going to have one for a while. So, yeah. But I'm going to wait and get a couple more weeks of comments, I think, before I dive into volume 42. And I'm going to mentally prep myself. I'm going to basically come back to Whiteboard Kun and write down my speculations, what I think is going to happen in the last volume, what I think we're going to be dealing with. Now that Griffith has shown up at Elf Helm, it's like all deals are off. And I'm going to have some like space to write questions, some space to speculate. We're going to have to have a lot of room on Whiteboard Kun available. So anyway, I'm curious to know what you thought of the guidebook, what you thought about this. I'm curious to know your thoughts down below. I know it was a long reaction this week, but we'll see how next week goes with volume 42. Anyway, I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I'll be back real soon with more Berserk. Bye.